Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto being dead and revived by Death God. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Naruto grunted as another fireball slammed him into the wall. The 22-year-old Jonin was squaring off against the original pain wheel. His friends were taking on the last remnants of the Akatsuki. Naruto surged chakra into his palm, creating a Rasengan. Pain had just been blindsided by a kick from Sakura and look up in time to see Naruto Rasengan fly at his face. He didn't even have time to react before the super condensed ball of chakra leveled his head. The body dropped to the ground. Naruto looked over to see a raven-colored blur shouting out numbers as Hinata dealt with one of the three pains left standing. She struck it dead center, blowing a hole through its chest, destroying its heart. It dropped to the ground, dead. Naruto flashed her a smile before it turned to horror. Hinata's face went pale as she looked down to her. Clean through was a hand. Naruto saw the hand pulled back as the remaining pain went to work on the other leaf nins. Naruto rushed over just as she dropped to the ground, catching her before she fell. He heard a roar of pain as Kakashi struck the final pain in the throat, decapitating, who had finished off Pain's female friend rushed over. Naruto cradled the young woman in his arms, as he sobbed. She coughed up blood and looked up at him, her eyes half opened. Naruto-kun, I need to tell you something. She wheezed. You can tell me later. You'll be fine, right Sakura? He asked, looking up to her. Sakura shook her head, tears cutting white trails down her dirt-covered face. Naruto felt his heart stop as he looked back at her. Hinata smiled at him weakly. I'm dying, I know this, but I must do this before I go. Naruto-kun, I love you. I have loved you for years, she said, tears welling up in her eyes. Naruto felt his gut clench. How could he have been so stupid? He should have seen the signs. Now, the only woman to truly love him was fading fast. Hinata, he chalked out, I'm sorry. I was stupid. If I had known you had felt this way, I'd have come around faster to notice. His tears fell fat and thick. No, it wasn't meant to be. But, do me a favor, please, she asked, smiling. Naruto whipped his eyes on his jacket sleeve. Anything for you, Hina-chan. Kiss me, just this once. Naruto nodded and moved his face closer to hers. Their lips met and they kissed. Hinata placed a hand behind his head, pulling him further into the kiss. After several seconds, they broke apart. Hinata smiled at him, her eyes slowly closing as her breathing slowed. Thank you. At least I die happy. She breathed. No. Please, no, Naruto whispered as her breathing stopped. Sakura, crying silently, checked the young Hyuga. She looked at him and shook his head. Naruto pulled her to his chest, crying uncontrollably. Kakashi, Tsunade, Guy, Kurenai, Kiba, Lee, Neji, Tenten, Sai, Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, and Yamato looked at the young man sadly. This was the second time he had lost someone precious to him. Kakashi placed a hand on his shoulder, about to comfort him, when a mighty roar issued from the darkened cave to their left. Everyone's head snapped over to see a horrendous creature stumble out of the cave. It was huge, at least 50 feet tall. It had 9 tails, 1 was Shukaku's, 2 were from Nibi, 3 from the 3 tails, and 4 from the 4 tails. The creature saw them and let out a bellow like an angry bull and stumbled toward them. The leaf ninja stood ready, even though they were drained. Naruto stepped in front of them, grief-stricken. He looked to Kakashi. Sensei, get everyone out of here. I'll handle this thing. Kakashi looked over to his student. How? By calling on all his power. All 9 tails. Naruto, that could kill you, Tsunade said. I know, he said cutely, but it is the only way to kill this thing. Go, and Sensei, do me a favor. Kakashi looked at his student, sadly, knowing this would probably be the last time he ever saw him. Yes, Naruto, take Hinata back with you. Give her a Hokage funeral. She meant everything to me. To everyone, she deserves it. You got it. And Naruto? The blonde looked at him. I'm proud of you. You have become stronger than me. You have made me so proud to be your sensei. I hope you find peace. And tell Hinata hello for us. I don't think Kami allows demons in heaven, he said sadly. Itrhink, you earned it, Tsunade said, tears running down her face. Thank you, Hokage-sama, for everything. Thank you all for being my friends. Live long and prosper, guys. Naruto said, stepping towards the monster. Kakashi picked up Hinata's body and the leaf ninja leapt out of the cavern, heading for daylight, grief racking their hearts. Naruto let his tears silently fall as he gathered his chakra, calling upon everything the fox had. He felt his chakra halt as a familiar voice crept through his grief-racked mind. Kit, I know what you're doing. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm the only one who can destroy this thing. I've already lost too much to this damned organization to stop now. Even if I die killing this thing, at least my friends will be safe. And I'll get to see Hinata again. His heart warmed at that thought. Kyuubi nodded and sent him all he had. You've made me proud, Kit. It has been a pleasure to serve with you in these times. Hopefully, we'll see each other in Kami's court. I'll miss being in here with you, Kit. The fox said sadly. I know. I'll miss you too, you old fox. Naruto began to change quicker than he ever had. His chakra tail sprouted rapidly. The chakra cloak covered him tightly, burning his skin. He pushed the pain aside. He felt his mind sharpen, even at 4 tails. He had complete control. At 9 tails, something amazing happened. His hair stood straight up, turning a glowing gold color while his skin turned red. His whisker marks were dark and his canines long. His tears were vaporized by the intense heat from the chakra. He let open a primal roar and glared at the abomination. You die here, freak. Naruto began to gather his chakra into his hands. Twin balls of super condensed chakra began to form. In several seconds, they were each a meter across. Naruto roared and slammed them together, pouring everything he had into them. With one huge ball of Shaura, Naruto leapt. The beast roared with fear as the ball was slammed into his head. It exploded with enough foche to collapse the mountain in top of them. The beast had been dead from his head exploding, whereas an exhausted Naruto was crushed under tons of rubble. Naruto felt himself floating. Opening his eyes, he saw something only a nightmare could produce. In front of him, sat a creature that looked partially rotten. Its ribs were exposed where its robes part at the chest. It had a demon-like face with a single blade in its mouth. It sat lotus-style, appraising the boy with its golden eyes. Naruto Uzumaki, container of the 9-tailed fox. We met. Naruto looked at the being with fear. Do not be afraid. I am the god of death. I have witnessed how you died. Now, as per holy law, it is up to me to decide what to do with you. I have seen your pain and what you gave up to destroy that abomination. For that, I'll give you a chance to right the wrongs that have been done. What do you mean? I will send you back to when you returned to the village. The day before, to be specific. You're going to send me back? He asked, too stunned to be annoying. Yes, on one condition. Anything, he said, bowing before the death god. You will kill Orochimaru. His time has come. He is unnatural. It has upset the balance of the cosmos that he lives when he should be dead. Now, do you accept? Yes, he said without hesitating. Good, I will send you back with all your memories. And Kyuubi will join with you. Join with me? Yes. To do this, I will have to fuse your souls together. You will still be you, but you will have his memories and all his chakra. In a sense, you will be one. I'll do it. Good luck, Naruto. The blackness swirled away. Naruto found himself suddenly awake. He looked around and saw he was surrounded by trees on all sides. He looked up and saw that the sun had barely risen. He saw that he was camping due to the tent behind him and the fire pit in front of him. He stood up and pulled out a kunai. Carefully, he cut his poem, feeling the pain it brought. As quickly as he cut, he saw the wound heal quickly. He smiled as his heart soared. He was alive and he was where he was supposed to be. Naruto grinned when he remembered where he was. He turned to the tent and lifted the flap. Lying asleep was Jiraiya. The old man looked peaceful, slight smile on his face as his chest rose and fell slowly. Naruto took a deep breath. Wake up, Ero Sennin, he screamed into the mont's ear. The man let out a screech like a monkey and jumped up, looking around, white hair flying. When he saw Naruto laughing, he glared. Must you do that every morning? He growled, rubbing his eyes. Sorry, Jiraiya-sensei. Naruto laughed. You've never called me Jiraiya-sensei before. You feeling okay? He asked, checking the boy for a fever. I'm fine. I just figured it was time to grow up, right, sensei? Naruto grinned. Jiraiya returned the wide grin. I couldn't have said it better myself. Now, let's get going. Yeah, We have a lot of ground to cover to get back home. And there's someone I have to see. Who? That pink-haired girl? Sakura was her name? Jiraiya said, scratching his head, lost in thought. Nope, a certain play-eyed, raven-haired beauty who I have been blind to for years. Naruto left, leaving Jiraiya confused. What the hell was wrong with the boy? If only he knew. Naruto and Jiraiya walked down the road as they came across a small village 15 minutes from the leaf. Naruto glanced down at his attire and shook his head. He had forgotten how much orange he had worn. He looked to Jiraiya to see the man staring absent-mindedly at the sky. Hey, sensei? Can we make a quick stop at a clothing shop? I kinda think it's time to move past orange. About time. I have been saying the same thing for 2 years. Jiraiya looked at him, smiling. Yeah, I guess it finally sunk in. Anyway, I'm going to get some new clothes. He turned to leave but stopped. Spinning around, he hugged Jiraiya and let go. Thanks for everything, sensei. Naruto said as he took off to the nearest clothing store. Jiraiya watched him, shocked as the blonde disappeared onto a nearby clothing shop. What the devil happened to him? He asked confused before he noticed a nearby hot spring. He giggled like a schoolgirl and cast his stalking no jutsu. Naruto watched, snickering. He had cast a genjutsu on Jiraiya, making the man think that he was peeping on women when all he was doing was looking through the hole in a barrel. He still thinks I can't cast a genjutsu to save my life. Thank God for Kyuubi. Naruto sighed and entered the store and began to browse. After 15 minutes, he settled on a black jacket with a dark blue shirt. He wore dark green ninja pants and dark blue sandals. He left his jacket open to expose his undershirt which fit him tightly. He frowned when he realized that he could see all the muscles he had developed. He shook his head and walked over to a giggling Jiraiya. Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder and released him from the genjutsu. What the? Jiraiya looked up to see a grinning Naruto. Like barrels, sensei? Huh? Jiraiya looked back to the hot spring only to see a barrel in front of him. He stood up and looked around before his eyes settled on the blonde. I thought you couldn't do genjutsu. Kyuubi showed me how. That reminds me. I came across a term I don't understand. What is a hanyu? Jiraiya motioned for Naruto to follow him. They walked out the village before he spoke. Naruto, hanyus are part demons. They look perfectly human, but under times of great stress, they begging to show their demon side. They are immortal to a point and stop aging around their 20th birthday. They are incredibly hard to kill. Why the sudden interest? Nothing. Just something Kyuubi mentioned to me a while back. Something about us fusing. Jiraiya sighed. I had a feeling that would happen. Naruto, you will eventually become a hanyu. Really? Well, things could be worse. Jiraiya stared at him. Before he could say anything, they reached the gates to the village hidden in the leaves. Naruto's grin widened as they walked into the village. The guards on duty greeted them. Naruto walked with slow, deliberate steps. He eventually came across Sakura and the Konohamaru Corps. He smiled as he walked up behind Sakura, suppressing his chakra. And then the cat attacked Naruto for no reason. She was saying, not true. I kinda squished it, remember? He said, smiling. Sakura jumped in fright and turned around to come face to face with a 6-foot-tall Naruto. What was even more shocking was the lack of orange clothing. She looked him over, not daring to believe it was him. He simply grinned. So, Sakura, I see you have become more womanly. He said, remembering clearly the beating he received for saying she hadn't changed at all. She blushed pink as she looked down. Thank you, Naruto. You have become more manly. Naruto chuckled as she looked him over again, her eyes resting a moment on his rock-hard abs. Before she could say anything, a bang and a poof of smoke preceded the appearance of a beautiful brunette. She gave Naruto a wink before disappearing, only to be replaced by a grinning 12-year-old boy. Naruto patted the kid on the head. Well done, Konohamaru. But don't use that technique anymore. Okay? The boy looked at him, amazed. He could only nod his head as Naruto turned to Jiraiya. We should get going. Tsunade-sama isn't a patent woman if memory serves. Who are you and what have you done with Naruto? Sakura asked, joking. Jiraiya's sensei managed to teach him how to be respectful. He said grinning as they headed for the Hokage Tower. Naruto and the Toad Sage walked intro the tower. Naruto knocked and waited for her to tell them to come in. Jiraiya beamed as he bounded happily into the room. Hey, Tsunade. long time no see. Tsunade looked up and glared at him, making him halt mid-step. Bad time? He asked, fearing for his life. Very. Where's the knucklehead? Right here, Tsunade-sama. Naruto said, bowing deeply. Tsunade looked at him in amazement as he stood tall and maintained eye contact. Naruto? You've grown, and become more of a man, she said, blushing slightly as she looked him over. Naruto let out a frustrated sigh. Why in the world did every woman he came across want to check him out? Yeah, it's all because of Jiraiya-sensei. Jiraiya-sensei. Whoa, you've definitely changed. Tell you what, why don't you go ahead and look around and Jiraiya will give me the debriefing. Sounds good, he said. He got up and walked to the door. His hand was staring to go to the knob when Tsunade shouted out, "Hey, brat. Catch." He turned quickly and snatched a set of keys out of the air. He looked at them, then back at her. It's a welcome back present. Also, your apartment complex was demolished a few months ago. Your stuff is boxed up in your house. Thanks, Hokage-sama, Naruto said, cheerily as he left the room. Tsunade turned to Jiraiya. You did a number on him. Good job. Actually, he woke up that way yesterday. I guess he finally decided to grow up. We can only hope. Naruto was walking peacefully through the village, taking in the familiar sights. Hard to believe that in 3 years, Orochimaru will attack again. He almost got us too, if it hadn't been for Sasuke fighting back against Hyuga. Naruto's face fell into sadness as he remembered how Sasuke had struggled to regain control of his body, only killing them both as he plunged the Chidori into his own chest. Unfortunately, Hyuga managed to escape and elud capture. Not this time. This time, I'll make sure you live, Sasuke. Naruto hadn't even been paying attention to where he was going and ended up colliding with Lord Hyuga. Both fell on their butts. Naruto looked up and immediately sunk into a low bow. Lord Hyuga, I apologize for not watching where I was going. Please, allow me to help you carry your bags. Hiashi looked at the boy with interest. He had always been neutral to the young man, mainly because he had never shown a tendency to attack the village. The boy had always tried to help the Leaf Village. Even though he liked the boy for the most part, Hiashi had laughed like a lunatic when he saw what Naruto had done to the Hokage monument. He was still apprehensive about the fox. Hiashi gave the boy a quick look over and nodded. Very well. Apology accepted. You will follow me and carry the bags. Naruto nodded and lifted up the 2 bags of groceries. Hey, Lord Hyuga, how come you don't send someone to do this for you? Because I feel the need to do my part to help keep the clan well. That includes the occasional trip to the market. I see. I guess that is the reason your clan looks up to you so much. You have a great philosophy. Hiashi looked back at him, curiously. Maybe the boy was more than he appeared. He went back top, leading him to the Hyuga compound where he led Naruto to the kitchen. Naruto set the bags down and began helping them put the groceries away. It took them 10 minutes to finish. Hiashi looked at him gratefully. Thank you for your help. It is much appreciated. No sweat. After all, I knocked you over on accident anyway. Lord Hyuga? Is Hinata home? No. She is on mission. Why? He asked suspiciously. No reason. Just want to catch up is all. Good day, Lord Hyuga. Naruto bowed again and left the building respectfully. Hiashi watched him leave with a thoughtful expression. Perhaps I should consider him as a possible husband for Hinata. After all, she is infatuated with him. Naruto walked down the darkening streets of the village, heading for Ichiraku Ramen. He entered and was surprised to see Sakura sitting at the stall, eating a small bowl of what looked like pork ramen. Hey, if it isn't Naruto. Long time no see. Tucci, the owner said, smiling as the blonde sat down. Ayame looked out from the kitchen and blushed severely. Naruto saw this and knew what she was thinking. He had learned over the years the reasons why women blush. Now, he kinda wished he didn't. Ayame shook her head and smiled at him. Hello, Naruto-kun, she said, emphasizing the honorific. Tucci raised an eyebrow as he saw Naruto go a little red. Hey, Ayame-chan, how have you been? Fine, thanks to you, I was able to go to collage. I'd be willing to pay you back any way you want, she said, flirtatiously. Tucci hoped to God he said no. He would have a word with her later. No thanks necessary. Beside, you guys deserved my service. After all, you're the only ones who knew about KYM, who knew of my problem and still treated me kindly. He mentally cursed himself. He remembered that that wasn't public knowledge yet. And he had almost let it slip. Tucci noticed it and sighed in relief. Yes, well, what can I get ya? I'm not really too hungry. How about a bowl of miso? A single bowl? Alright. Tucci looked at him skeptically. Sakura turned to Naruto. So, what have you been up to? Not much. Just rewriting some new things. You? I learned a lot of medical ninjutsu and also learned how to use superhuman strength like sensei. Naruto nodded, remembering the first time she had used her immense strength. It had scared the living shit out of him. But that wouldn't happen until tomorrow. Good. Say, Sakura, have you been seeing anyone? I mean, just so you know, I'm over my crush now. I just wanna know. Sakura looked at him skeptically. But seeing that his eyes betrayed nothing, she believed him. No, she said softly. Naruto lowered his head. He knew she was still missing Sasuke. Hey, Sakura, why don't you give Lee a chance? He's a great guy. Smart, funny, and a kind person. She looked at him and realized he was saying things she already knew. I don't know. It's just that. Her voice trailed off. Sakura, I know you're waiting for Sasuke. But, I think it's time to move on. Even though I promised to bring him back, I might not be able to. And it isn't healthy for you to just wait for him. As your self-proclaimed older brother, I don't want to see you hurt. Just give Lee a chance. You won't regret it. Older brother. Since when? She asked, smiling. Since now. He said, grinning. Tucci set the bowl in front of him. Nato began to eat at a normal pace. Normal as in how fast normal people eat. Sakura just smiled at him. Well, I guess you're right. Besides, if my niece-san approves of him, why shouldn't I? Always listen to you older bro. He knows his stuff. For the most part. Naruto finished his bowl and pushed it away, thanking them as he tossed a few notes on the table. Alright, oh, that reminds me. Hinata wanted me to tell you hello just in case she wasn't here when you arrived. Yeah, and it'll be a week before they get back too. He said miserably. How would you know? Easy, I read the I mean. Hiyashi told me this morning when I ran into him. Literally. Sakura laughed at the mental image of the powerful Hiyashi Hyuga knocked on his ass in the middle of the street. Should get to the Hokage before it gets too late, she said, checking her watch. Naruto nodded and they headed off to the tower. Naruto stood respectfully in Tsunade's office as she looked at him over her folded hands, eyes peering into his own. He simply smiled and waited. Naruto, I have been talking with Jiraiya. We have agreed on 3 things. 1. Due to the skill and promise you have shown, along with your newfound maturity, I am promoting you to Chunin. She pulled a green vest OTU and tossed it to him. He thanked her and put it on over his black jacket, rolling up its sleeves up past the elbow. 2nd. I want you to head to Suna. They're getting a little antsy about a certain organization. Akatsuki, he growled. Tsunade sent Jiraiya a questioning look. He shook his head, letting her know he didn't say anything. She pursued how he knew at a later date. And Thrid, we want to inform you of your parents. I know who they are already. Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. How the devil did you know? Jiraiya asked, looking at him flabbergasted. Well, for one, I knew I was the 4th son because let's face it. Not too many blonde-haired blue-eyed shinobi running around the village. Also, I have been called the legacy of the 4th. As for how I know about my mother, that's simple. Kyuubi told me. Suande cursed the fox silently. Well, that's everything. You'll head to Suna the day after tomorrow. You're going alone, mainly because I don't have the resources to send more than 1 shinobi. So, get some rest. When you get back, we also have to talk about some of the things that were left for you. Hi, Hokage-sama. He bowed and vanished in a swirl of leaves. What the hell? Did you teach him that? Tsunade rounded in Jiraiya. He raised his hands in a defensive position. I swear, I didn't teach him that. What is going on with that boy? Naruto walked to his new home, feeling content. He had already changed things for the better. Sure, he had sped up Sakura dating Lee by 4 years, but hey, if it works in the end, who cares? He just didn't know what to do about Sasuke. He knew where he was and where he'd be. But he couldn't go after him yet. Right now, he had to prepare for his fight against the 2 Akatsuki who were going to try to capture Gaara. He knew what they would DP and when they would do it. So, he decided to leave tonight. He sent a clone to his house to make it look like he was there. He pulled out the tri-pronged kunai Jiraiya had given him during their training trip, and channeled chakra into the blade. He flashed a few hand signs and teleported the kunai to Suna. He could only teleport small items because that was the only teleportation jutsu he had learned. He waited a moment before he felt the call from the kunai. Concentrating on it, he vanished in a bright flash of yellow. Gaara was breathing heavy. The blonde bomb maker was just grinning at him as he sent more explosive creations at him. Gaara barely managed to deflect them with his sand. Below him, he could hear the people calling to him, giving him their support. Pushed on by this, he stood up, tall, and glared at the blonde. "Oh, looks like someone wants to see some more of my art, Here's a real bang, Gaara readied himself when a bright yellow flash shone brightly on top of the cage tower. "You want a bang? Well, here's a little something for you." Gaara looked clowly and grinned. Standing atop the tower, flashing through hand signs was Naruto Uzumaki, his first friend. Fire style. Exploding Kraken. Naruto led a humongous ball of fire that took the shape of the mighty Kraken. It flew at the blonde too fast for him to counter. It smashed into him, the temperature alone would incinerate him. After a few seconds, it exploded, killing the blonde instantly. Gaara nodded to Naruto as he rifted over to him. "Uzumaki. A pledge. Your timing was impeccable. Thanks. Get some rest. There's one more I have to deal with." Gaara only nodded before he reminded Naruto he couldn't sleep. "Oh, yeah, forgot about that. Here, let me help you out." He made a few quick hand signs and slammed his hand against Gaara's stomach. A mark appeared on his stomach the same as the mark on his forehead. Gaara grunted as he felt the demon's presence disappear from his mind completely. "What did you do?" "I put Shukaku in a permanent stasis. He'll sleep forever. So, now you can get some rest." Gaara didn't even hesitate as he passed out on the roof. Naruto leapt away to the entrance to the hidden sand village. He moved as quickly as he could, knowing full well what would happen if this lone Akatsuki got away. Sure enough, he came across a lone cloaked figure, hurrying away. Naruto threw a barrage of kunai at him. The man turned and deflected them with his tail like appendage. The man glanced around. Naruto could smell the fear coming off of him, his excellent night vision allowing him to see everything. The man turned out of the way before another kunai flew by his head. Naruto made a few quick hand signs and sunk into the ground. Sasori looked around, still afraid at the sudden attack. He felt a chakra signature and moved silently towards it. When he got near, it disappeared. He wondered where it went to when a hand shot out of the sand, pulling him down. Suddenly, he found himself encased in sand up to his neck. The puppet master looked up to see Naruto. He glared at the man, his blue eyes having slits for pupils. "Well, hello, Sasori. We met again. I have never met you before, Nine Tails." "Well, in a sense, yes you have. You see, I made a deal with the death god. He let me come back to life after killing all of you and your weapon in exchange for me killing Habi Teme. I'm just righting a few wrongs. Such as you assholes taking Gaara. Any last words?" "Yeah, I lose. Hey, ain't life a bitch?" Rasengan. He plunged the ball into the puppet's head, blowing through the body parts, digging deeper into the ground, destroying his heart and his scrolls and everything he was. Naruto pulled his hand out to the nicely dug crater, smirking. "Hey, you guys are now screwed. Time to talk to the Hokage about getting Nibi into the village so she can be protected." "Oh, damn. It'll take at least a day and a half to get back. Might as well enjoy Suna while I can." Naruto ended up staying for 5 days. Gaara had held a celebration in his honor for saving him. Naruto had been modest through the whole thing. He thanked them for their hospitality. And Gaara's brother and sister had even thanked him for sealing Shukaku the way he did. They said that Gaara had become more people-friendly. He waved goodbye to them as he headed back to the Leaf Village. He arrived back later that day, using his speed he got from Kyuubi that would put Rock Lee to shame. He arrived at the gates, breathing heavy as he waved a hello to the Chunins on guard duty. He headed directly to the Hokage's office just in time for the door to open and him to come face to face with Hinata. He saw her face go bright red as he grinned at her. She simply stared at him, wide-eyed, mouth tightly shut. "Hey, Hina-chan, you look great," he said, grinning widely. Hinata's eyes shut as she fell forward, thinking one thing. Naruto-kun thinks I look great. Naruto caught her and gently lifted her up, bridal style, walking back into the room. He set her down and tenderly whipped a strand of hair from her face, letting his fingers brush against her soft smooth cheek. How did I never notice her? And when I did, it was finally too late. Not this time. He stood up and turned around to see several different reactions. Kiba was grinning like a maniac. Shino's eyebrows had disappeared into his hairline. Suande simply smiled and nodded at him while Kurenai looked stunned. Kiba walked over and draped an arm around his shoulder. So, you moving in on Hinata? What's it to you, dog breath? He and Kiba had argued like this for years, and they both enjoyed it. Kiba glared at him and removed his arm. He walked over to the door and flashed him a knowing grin. Naruto shook his head while the rest of Team 8 filed out. He looked to the Hokage and sat down in the chair in front of her desk. She looked at him with a strange look before speaking. I take it the mission was a success? Hi. Oh, here. Rings from the two Akatsuki. Deidria and Sasori. He placed 2 rings on the table. Naruto, how'd you kill them? They were at least Sannin level. I got lucky with a few perfectly placed shots. Nothing more. Tsunade nodded her head, accepting his explanation. Well, I see you know how to handle yourself. Now, as to what your parents left you. The home I gave you the keys to? It was your father's house. Also, you have inherited a large sum of money from them both. Other than this letter, there's nothing else. She handed him the letter. He took it and opened it. He had already read it over 1,000 times, but each time he read it, he always had the same reaction. The letter read, Naruto, my son, if you are reading this, then both your mother and I are no longer alive. While it saddens me to think that I will miss your 15th birthday, it also brings me joy to know that I can still leave you a message, and you will be alive to see it. When I found out that I was to be a father, I was ecstatic. But I couldn't tell anyone. I did not want you targeted by my enemies. The only ones I could trust were my sensei, Jiraiya, my student Kakashi Hitaki, and the third. That is why the Hokage presenting you this scroll was instructed to wait until you became a man. I am sorry for the pain you must have felt at not knowing who your parents are. I hope that by now, you have someone special in your life to share it with. If you do, never let her go. Always treasure her and love her. Always, always be with her no matter the cost. I love you, son, and I hope you can forgive a loving father for wanting his son to grow up safe and happy. Your loving father, Minato Namikaze 4th Hokage, village hidden in the leaves. Naruto whipped the tears from his eyes and nodded to the Hokage. Tsunade looked at him solemnly and nodded that it was okay for him to go. He was just standing up when he heard a groan. He looked behind him to see Hinata stirring. Grinning, he walked over to her and picked her up, BRDAL style. He looked over his shoulder. I'll take her home. She'd better get there as she is now. You think Jiraiya rubbed off on me that much? Yes. Now get going. Hinata woke up to see the ceiling of her room. She remembered coming face to face with Naruto and remembered what he had said. Hey, Hina-chan, you look great. She blushed red as she sat up. So you're up? Good. She looked over to see a grinning Naruto sitting next to her bed. She turned pink as she yanked the covers up to her chin. Naruto chuckled. It's alright. I didn't do anything. I brought you home and asked your dad if I could stay until you woke up. She sighed in relief before turning to her crush. She was still blushing furiously as he smiled at her. She decided to try to talk with him. So, Naruto-kun, how have you been? Naruto grinned at her. She had such a cute stutter. Not to mention her cute blush. Not much. Just training. You? The same. Good. Training is a good way to get stronger. Hi. Oh, that reminds me. You remember when we went after the scent bug, right? Hi. And how I told Kiba about a beautiful girl I saw near the waterfall. Hi. Her face went redder as she listened. I know who it was. He said, moving to sit next to her. She didn't say anything. He paused and looked at her in the face. Say, you hungry? We can go get something to eat. Might treat. Hinata couldn't believe her ears. Naruto was asking her in a date. Well, maybe not a date. She needed to clarify. Anyo, is this a D-date? Naruto grinned widely. Yeah, it is. A clunk was heard as Hinata passed out from happiness. Hinata woke up in her bed and sighed. She had been having a wonderful dream about Naruto. He had come back to the village and had asked her on a date. She assumed she had woken up before the date began, because she couldn't remember what happened. She was just sitting up when Hanabi burst into the room, wide-eyed and grinning. "Hinata Ne-chan, get up, you have a visitor," she said excitedly, jumping onto her sister's bed, landing on her stomach. Hinata smiled at her little sister. "Okay." Hinata threw the covers off and noticed she was already dressed. She guessed she had just fallen asleep that way when she got back from her mission. Hanabi was besides herself with excitement. "Man, you get all the cute guys coming for you," she said enviously. "I'm only waiting for one," Hinata said sadly, knowing it may never happen. "Yeah, that Uzumaki guy. Listen, get over him. He's not worth the effort if he hasn't noticed you. You should be more interested in the hot blonde guy in the hall talking with father." Hanabi blushed. "Blonde? Oh no. Father is trying to get me to go with one of the noble's sons again. I guess I should at least give the boy a fair chance. Even if my heart already belongs to Naruto. Well, let's go. I want to meet this guy." Hanabi grabbed her sister's hand and pulled her out of the room. "You mean you haven't said hello?" "No. Just spied a little before I came and got you." Hinata shook her head. It's a wonder she was related to Hanabi by blood. They were so different in personality. They reached the hall where Hinata could see her father talking to a blonde boy about 6 foot with his back to them. He was a chunin at least. She could tell from the vest he wore. And he was a leaf shinobi from the style of the vest. He was blonde all right. Hinata was reminded of Naruto as the two spoke. Hiyashi glanced up and gave Hinata a small smile. "Ah, here she is. I hope I can trust you with my daughter, Uzumaki-san?" Hiyashi asked, looking at the boy. Hinata's breath caught. "Uzumaki? Surely it can't be." The boy turned around and grinned at her. Sure enough, it was Naruto. Hinata felt her face heat up. "Yep, you can trust me, Lord Hyuga. I may be many things, but untrustworthy isn't one of them." "Good. I expect her home by 11 at the latest." He placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yosh, she'll be home on time." Naruto looked at the man. "Good. Well, have fun." Hiyashi turned and left the room. Hinata stood on the other side of the room, blushing madly. Beside her stood a small girl who was looking at him, blushing too. Naruto shook his head, smiling. Perhaps he had some kind of charm the Hyuga women couldn't resist. He was just about to walk over to Hinata when Hanabi spoke up. "You're hot. I can see why Ne-chan likes you." She blurted out. She let out an eep as she slapped her hands over her mouth. Blushing bright red, Hanabi tore out of the hall towards her room. Naruto grinned after her before looking at Hinata. He walked over and bowed politely. "Are you ready to leave, Lady Hinata?" Hinata couldn't help but giggle. He looked up, seeing her smiling as she nodded her head. "Well, shall we?" he said, opening the door, allowing her to leave first. Naruto was grinning the whole time as he shut the door softly and got up beside Hinata. They didn't hold hands or anything. They just walked smiling. He would try to sneak looks at her face, rubbing the back of his head when he was caught. Hinata couldn't believe the amount of attention he was showing her. She hoped that this was real life and not a dream. Naruto looked over to her. "Hinata, wanna hold my hand? It's okay with me." She looked at him for a second and nodded her head. She didn't trust her voice at the moment. So, she put her hand out. He didn't hesitate and took her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers, savoring the feeling of her soft flesh on his. He grinned even wider. They walked aimlessly for a while before they came to a decent restaurant. It was called the Crescent Moon. It was also one of the few places that showed Naruto any respect as a kid. Hinata looked at him, puzzled. "We aren't getting ramen?" She could have sworn that would be the only place he would ever take someone. He chuckled. "Nope, ramen is good and all, but it isn't exactly something you should live on. It blocks the development of the human body when you eat it like I did. It caused me to miss something very important that I didn't see until it was taken from me." Hinata noticed how sad he looked as he looked at her. She could see the pain in his eyes. Without thinking, she raised her hand and brushed it along his whisker marks. He let her do this. He felt the heat through her fingers as she ran them over the whisker marks. He would make sure she lived. He grabbed her hand with his free one and held it there, looking into her lavender eyes. He knew what he had missed. And he knew what he had ignored all those years. Not anymore. He released her hand and smiled again. "Come, let's get something to eat." Together they walked into the restaurant. Kakashi, Tsunade, Iruka, and Jiraiya all watched as the blonde and the Hyuga walked down the street, both smiling and holding hands. They watched their short exchange in front of the restaurant about how something important had been taken from him. Sunday looked to Jiraiya. What is he talking about? I don't know. We didn't even have contact with any human for months on end. Jiraiya told her, still watching the two as they sat down at a table near the window. Naruto wouldn't make something like that up. The pain in his face was real. Something happened he's not telling us about. Iruka shitted in his position to get comfortable. Kakashi however was watching the boy's hand as he tapped on the table. To the untrained, it could have been impatient tapping. But looking at his face let Kakashi know what it was. Morse code. He knows we're here. How? They asked as one. I don't know, but he's tapping in Morse code the way I trained him to. What's he saying? Iruka asked, focusing on the silver-haired man. He says that he'd appreciate the privacy on his first date and asked us to kindly leave before he makes us leave. Alright, you heard the kid. Let's go. We'll talk KTO him tomorrow. Tsunade said as they leapt back to the Hokage's office. Naruto and Hinata finished their dinner and just talked over the candle between them on the table. At first, Naruto talked a little about himself. After a basic overview of his life, with a few details here and there, he let Hinata talk. She told him a lot more about her life than he had his. He felt sad that she had lost her mother at a young age. He was also pissed at the cloud. He'd right that particular wrong if he could. Now he listened how she told of how she had been the last few years. He nodded when she finished. Well, that was enlightening. I learned many things about you that I didn't know before. And learned a lot about you. Her stutter had, for the most part, vanished. Well, that's good, but I have one more thing to tell you. But we need to go somewhere private. It's a secret of mine that I won't tell to just anyone. Even my teammates don't know. Hinata nodded and followed him out after he had paid for their meal. They walked hand in hand to the Hokage monument, coming across Sakura and Lee talking. Naruto tried to sneak by when Lee happened to turn and see him. His face split into a grin. Hello, Naruto-san, I see you are well. Naruto was taken aback by the lack of shouting. Yeah, doing great. I see Sakura listened to my advice. He teased her. And I see my niece-san has come to his senses. She teased right back. Well, I'd have sooner if you hadn't have kept knocking my head into the ground. He retorted. Just get out of here. Your date is waiting. I know. Komon Hinata. We'll leave them be. They left Lee and Sakura and made it to the top of the monument without coming across anyone else. Naruto leaned back against a tree and Hinata sat as close as she dared without fainting. Surprisingly, it was right next to him. He sighed and looked to her. Hinata, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is something that can't be. She hoped he wasn't going to tell her that this night had been a waste, but then she remembered that he said he had a secret to tell her. She waited patiently. Hinata, 15 years ago, Yodem sealed the nine-tailed fox in a newborn because he couldn't kill it. The newborn boy was going to be the hero of the village. At least was supposed to be. It ended up to be the exact opposite. He was the enemy, a wolf in sheep's cloths. Hinata, that boy, that container, was me. Hinata was silent, her hand over her mouthy, Shovik on her face. Naruto knew she wouldn't run. After all, he remembered telling his friends why the Akatsuki was after him after they had failed to get Sasuke after he killed Itachi. So, he waited patiently. And she didn't disappoint. They hated you because of something you had no control in? She whispered. Yeah, they beat me a few times, but I don't blame them. They were just scared and didn't understand. You can really hold it against them. He said softly. Naruto, thank you for trusting me. I hope you didn't think this would change anything. No, I knew you would be the first to accept me. That's why I told you first. Naruto checked his watch. Well, I'd better get you home or your dad'll kill me. Hinata nodded and together, they set off for the Hyuga compound, hand in hand. Naruto and Hinata arrived outside of the Hyuga compound. Naruto turned to her grinning. Did you have fun? Hi. She smiled. Good. We'll set a date for our next date. Does that mean I'm your— She couldn't get the word out. Naruto pulled her into a hug, still keeping eye contact. Hinata Hyuga, yes, you are my girlfriend, he said softly. She sighed happily and placed her head against his chest. They stayed that way until Hiyashi came out the door. He asked the guards when they arrived. He was pleased to hear that they had arrived 5 minutes before 11. Hinata, it's time to come inside. he called as he returned back to the house. Hinata pulled away and started to head to the door when Naruto spun her around. In one fluid movement, he closed the distance and pressed his lips against hers. It was a short, sweet kiss that promised many others. He pulled away, grinning. "See you tomorrow, Hina-chan," he said as he walked away. Hinata simply stood there, hand on her mouth. She could have died happy right here. With a blissful smile, she turned and walked into the house, waiting for the next day. Naruto walked down the street, happy and excited. He had finally fixed one of the many wrongs that had been done. And he now had a beautiful woman who he could love and protect and possibly share the rest of his life with. With that happy thought he began humming, unaware that he was being tailed. When he got to his house, he felt a presence behind. Using his Hanyu abilities, he vanished in a spurt of speed. He appeared behind a group of people, at least 4 of them. He silently made 4 Bushins and had them grab the 4. Each intruder had a knife to their necks. Naruto held a kunai and stepped in front of them. "What do you want?" he hissed. His eyes glowed red as his whisker marks darkened. "Naruto, it's us," one of them said. He moved closer and sure enough, there stood Kakashi, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Iruka. Every one of them had their arms pinned behind them and a knife pressed to their throats. Naruto dispelled the jutsu. "You shouldn't be sneaking up on me like that. You could have been killed," he said, turning to his house. He motioned for them to follow as he unlocked the door. They entered and went to the front room and plopped down on the sofa. Naruto himself dropped into the recliner. He looked at the 4 overfolded hands. "What do you need?" he asked. Iruka looked uncomfortably as he looked the boy into the eyes. He saw the slits still present. "Well, we want to know what's going on with you. You've been acting strange." Naruto sighed and rubbed his temples. "Where was Kyuubi when you needed advice?" He looked back at them and thought for a moment. He could trust them after all, they were basically his family. Albeit a strange family at times, but family nonetheless. He let out a tired sigh. "What I am telling you will become an S-class secret. Only you 4 can know." He looked at them. The Hokage nodded, letting him know that it would be treated as such and that the penalty would apply. "Very well. I am not the same Naruto Uzumaki you know. We know that. You've matured." Tsunade blurted out. "That's not what I meant. You see, I am technically from the future, about 5 years from now. I led a small force after the Akatsuki containing myself, Shino, Sakura, Kiba, Kurenai, Kakashi, Hinata, and yourself, Hokage-sama." During the mission, Hinata was struck by Pain, the leader of the Akatsuki. She was killed. After we killed the last Pain, their weapon activated. It only had 10 tails and it appeared that the demons' minds weren't sufficiently blended. It could barely walk right. In an attempt to destroy it, I had you all leave and I struck, using every scrap of chakra I had. The explosion was powerful enough to destroy the cave and the mountain above us. I was crushed to death by the rubble. However, the death god wanted me to do a job for him. He told me he'd bring me back with all my memories and abilities, if I promised to make sure Orochimaru was killed. I also have to right the wrongs made during this time. The room went silent as they each absorbed what he had told them. Jiraiya was the first to speak up. "Wait, where was I? Probably peeping in a bathhouse," Tsunade said sarcastically. "Actually, you were killed by Pain when you went after him yourself. Even in hermit mode, you still were defeated," Naruto told him sadly. "Oh." Jiraiya looked at Tsunade as she mouthed an apology to him. He gave her a weak smile to let her know it was okay. Iruka looked at Naruto. "So, you died and came back?" "Yeah, and you have to kill Orochimaru?" "Actually, I have to make sure he dies. That was the deal." "Alright, I believe you. You 3 know what this is and that you can tell no one," Tsunade said, standing up. They nodded and gave their goodbyes as they headed home. Naruto closed his door behind them, knowing his secret was safe. The next day, a happy Naruto walked down the street, not even paying attention to the nasty looks he knew that would change in 4 years, when he would kill an entire op-sowing cloud, sound, earth army that was trying to invade. He was walking down the street, planning on going by the coffee shop all the female shinobi adored so much to see if Hinata was there when 4 Anbu dropped in front of him. They each drew a kunai. "Well, this is new," he thought, dropping into a battle stance. One with a dog mask stepped forward. "By order of Lord Danzo, you will come with us." "Why?" "He has heard of your expirants and wishes to use your knowledge of events to his advantage. Tell that bastard it's an S-class secret and that only the Hokage and THSOE present can speak about that. You will come with us. Or what? You'll die. Just try it. A voice sounded out behind him. Naruto grinned when he sensed that it was Kakashi. The silver-haired man already had his Sharingan exposed. Hitaki, this has nothing to do with you. The dog mask spat. Oh, yes it does. I am one of the 4 people entrusted with the secret. And he is my student. So back off unless you like the taste of Chidori. Tei Anbu didn't wait. They leapt at the two, throwing blades and jutsus at them. Naruto twisted his body. He concentrated his wind chakra into a sharp blade and sent a spearhand into the dog mask's chest. He heard the gasp of pain as his heart exploded before he died. Kakashi himself had already impaled one of them with a Chidori. Naruto turned and flashed through a dozen hand signs. Wind style. Wind Dragon Guardian. A cyclone twisted form Naruto's hands, creating a dragon made completely out of wind tore into the 2 remaining Anbu. They were shredded in a matter of moments. Naruto lowered his hand and unmasked one of the dead Anbu and felt no pity for who it was. Sai had been killed by Kakashi's Chidori. Naruto felt no pity because Sai had betrayed them when Danzo made his attempt to assassinate the Hokage. Sai had been ordered to kill Team Kakashi. He had failed then too. Naruto turned to Kakashi. Anbu root. Danzo's men. Tell the Hokage about this and warn her to be prepared for Danzo to attempt an overthrow. Alright, I'll do that after I take care of these bodies. Naruto nodded and left, leaving Kakashi to burning the bodies. Hinata was enjoying a nice cup of coffee, listening to her friends chat happily about their boyfriends. She hadn't yet told them about her and Naruto's new relationship, mainly because they would spread the news quicker than a firestorm. And she just didn't want everyone to know yet. So, she listened as Ino and Tenten recounted their dates to one another. It was no secret that Ino was seeing Choji. After he had lost all his fat, having it be replaced by rock-hard muscle, she had switched over to fawning over him. And Tenten had openly declared that she was seeing Neji. Hinata listened only a little bit as her mind wandered to the kiss that she and Naruto had shared on her front steps. She sighed and smiled blissfully. The girls looked at her. What? Tenten asked. Oh, just wishing someone in my life loved me like that. She said, smiling. Oh, can I guess who he is? Don't tell me. Kakashi. Hinata sprayed her coffee on the table as she tried to take a sip. Sputtering, she turned around wide-eyed to see Naruto smiling at her. What, was I close? Maybe, Shino. He started to place a hand on her cheek, when she smacked it away. Bad, Naruto-kun, she scolded, forgetting about her friends. They watched amused as the two played around. Then who? It can't be a certain handsome blonde, could it? He teased. Maybe, she said, blushing. I give up. Can I get a hint? Hinata gave him a small kiss. He smiled widely as they broke apart. Oh, him, he said, faking sadness. I guess a lowly guy like me will have to find someone else. Hinata didn't know what got into her and decided to play along. She went cold and turned her face away. That's right. What chance could someone like you have with the Hyuga air? That hurt deep, Hina-chan. It was supposed to. I guess I have to steal your heart. He sighed. I'd like to see you try. Okay, he said brightly. He used his thumb and index finger to turn her face to his and placed a kiss on her lips. She wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled him deeper into it. When they broke apart, she looked thoughtful for a moment. Okay, you win, she said, smiling. Naruto grinned and snagged another chook kiss before sitting down next to her. When he looked at the two girls before him, he was confused. What? I can't kiss my girlfriend without people staring? Girlfriend? Since when? They shouted as one. Naruto looked over to Hinata. I take it you didn't tell them yet. She shook her head, blushing. Oh, well, this sucks, he said as he turned to the information-hungry girls. A man's worst nightmare is sitting in front of me. He thought as he saw the hungry looks in their eyes. Naruto had just finished recounting his story to Ino and Tenten about him and Hinata when a loud explosion sounded off from the direction of the Hokage Tower. Naruto wasted no time. He vanished in a swirl of leaves, leaving the three girls to head off to the tower at their own pace. Naruto arrived to see a full-fledged battle transpiring outside the tower. Naruto knew who his enemies were. The Anbu route. He proceeded to create 50 clones and sent them into battle to help out the Anbu guards. He himself leapt up to the Hokage's office, smashing through the window, kicking Danzo in the face as he raised a sword to decapitated a knockhead Otu Tsunade. Danzo stumbled back and glared at Naruto. Because of you I had to accelerate my plans to take over by 3 years. You have ruined everything, he roared, raising his blade to a sit level. No, you ruined everything. By the way, attempted assassination of the Hokage is an S-rank offense. It only has one punishment. Death. Any last words? Die demon, he shouted, raising the blade, leaping at Naruto. And here I was expecting an apology, Naruto said before the blade struck. He vanished in a poof of smoke. Danzo looked around. He suddenly tensed, making wild grabbing actions at the back of his neck. Jammed below the base of the skull was a kunai knife. Danzo dropped to the ground, dead. He twitched for a few seconds before he became still. Naruto stepped over the body and looked out the window. He could see the last of the root members running into the distance, being pursued by the Anbu guards and roughly 30 of Naruto's clones. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief. He should have expected this. After all, Danzo somehow knew about Naruto being from the future. He turned back to Tsunade and used a surge of chakra to eradicate the relaxant from her system. She raised her head sleepily, looking up at Naruto. What happened? Danzo attempted a coup. He's dead and the Anbu and my clones are in pursuit of his root members. And he knew. Somehow, he knew. It was confirmed later that day that the remaining root members were found and executed for their treasonous actions and that Naruto had saved the Hokage from the attempted coup. Now, he was walking to the Hyuga compound for a dinner with Hinata and her family. Apparently, it was tradition for one dating a Hyuga to meet their family as soon as possible. The fact that he knew the Hyuga council hated him didn't ease his nerves. So here he was, Naruto Uzumaki, age 15, Chunin, killer of 2 S-class missing nins of the highest order, getting ready to meet the family of the girl he was dating. Why the hell did Kami put him in such situations? He shook his head as he reached the front door. Knocking lightly, he waited. After a few seconds, the door opened and a young woman greeted him. Good evening, Uzumaki-sama. Please follow me to the dining room. Naruto nodded and followed her. It only took a minute to reach the room. What he saw scared him. He could see every member of the Hyuga Council and several members of both the main family and the branch family waiting for him. He could feel the hate pouring at him from the council members. Thankfully, Hiyashi gave him a polite smile. He saw a nervous Hinata sitting beside Hiyashi, looking at him with worry. What the hell? I can take on the Akatsuki, S-ranked missing nin, demons and other dangerous abominations of the OWRLD, and yet I am scared shitless of meeting her family. Why is this so scary? He thought as he moved to sit down next to Hinata in the chair Hiyashi pointed to. He had no way of knowing just how ugly THSI night was going to get. The room sat in silence as Naruto sat down. He noticed the glares from the council, and he didn't like it. And he sure as hell didn't like the smirk he was getting from one of the other branch members. He knew something was up. He reached his seat, bowing to Hiyashi before he sat down. He looked at the clan council pallidly. They only glared right back. Hiyashi noticed this and scowled. They were too pig-headed to even accept the boy. This night could get ugly, fast. He turned to Naruto, giving him a small smile. So, Naruto, it is an honor to see you here with us tonight. This dinner is a formality to learn more about you. What do you wish to know? He asked him. Well, we do need some basic information on your family. I hope you have learned something about them. Yes. What kind of demons were they? One of the elders shot at him. Naruto glared at him. I would suggest you refrain from saying those things. I have killed ninjas saying things like that. The elder shrugged and turned to the boy from the branch house and whispered something to him. Naruto caught the glint of a bottle and recognized the smell wafting from it. Potion. He concentrated his hearing. Slip some of this in the demons and Hiyashi's glasses. When they are dead and gone, you will have the heiress. He whispered. Naruto saw the boy smirk. He felt his rage build. In one fluid motion, he drew and flung a kunai. It cut the boy's sleeve at the elbow, causing it to drop. Everyone stood, the council glaring at Naruto. He has attacked a member of the clan. Check his hand, Lord Hyuga. He has a potion he was going to slip you and me. That guy, he pointed at the elder who had given the boy the potion, was going to give the heiress to him. Hiyashi activated his Byakugan and his anger rose. He snapped his head to the council, seeing their guilty expressions. You all are guilty of attempted murder. As per clan law, you will face myself and Naruto in mortal combat. The winner lives. The loser dies. That goes for you, buddy, Naruto said, glaring at the boy. The boy turned and bowed, arms held wide, sneering. It shall be your death, demon, he said, mockingly. Q land of confusion by disturbed. Naruto and Hiyashi stood on the opposite side of the sparring yard across from the 12 council members. Hiyashi looked at the group in front of him thoughtfully. You take 6, I take 6. He glanced at him. Naruto grinned. Nah, let's just wing it. I love flying by the seat of my pants. Hiyashi chuckled. This kid could cause even the most stone-faced villain to grin. Hiyashi focused back in the council, all of them in gentle fist stances, Byakugan active. Hiyashi mirrored them while Naruto sunk into an unknown taijutsu stance. Heishi was about to signal the referee to start when Neji joined them. Naruto glanced at him. What brings you here, Neji? When a battle like this is to take place, it is wise for the strongest to back the clan head. Only weak members try underhanded assassination attempts. Well, let's get wild. All three tensed. In one startling motion, they charged forward, Hiyashi and Neji, Byakugans active, Naruto, Rasengan in hand. Naruto slammed his Rasengan in between two of the council members, sending them flying. He quickly leapt to his right, flashing through hand seals. He took a deep breath. Fire style. Grand Fireball Jutsu. A massive ball of flames flew from his mouth, flying at one of the airborne council members. His impact into the wall, followed by the impact of the fireball, crushed the man, killing him. Naruto turned and ducked as a chakra-backed punch soared over his head. He bore at his knee up, smashing into the older man's chest, sending him flying backwards, hacking and coughing up blood as he felt his frail body failing on him. Naruto appeared behind him and slammed a fist into the back of his head, shattering his spinal cord. He dropped to the ground dead. Naruto spun around and kicked the man that had tried to poison him in the face, shattering his jaw. The man screamed in rage, or at least, attempted to. He charged Naruto, both palms coiled, launching them forward as he got within striking distance. Naruto spun away, flashing through hand signs at lightning speeds. He leapt into the air and surged chakra through his body. Earth style. Rock golem. He shouted as he landed on the ground. It began to creak and break as a monstrous golem pulled itself out of the ground. It roared and charged the young man. The branch member didn't miss a beat. Using rotation, he sent the golem into the wall with enough force to shatter them both. Naruto knew the handicap of the Hyugas. It was low chakra reserves. He pressed his advantage. He flashed through 4 seals. Soon, the sparring yard was filled with the sounds of 1,000 birds. Chidori, he cried, vanishing in a spurt of speed. He reappeared and shoved it through the man's chest. The man bucked forward involuntarily as his heart was destroyed. Naruto watched the life drain from him and felt no pity. He had learned to suppress his emotions when he killed. He yanked his hand back, letting the carcass hit the ground with a wet thud. Naruto looked over to see Neji slamming a spearhand through his last opponent's chest, blowing bits of bone and flesh out his back. The man coughed as he bled out. Neji pulled his arm back, which had surprisingly went into the chest to the elbow. He shook the gore off with a disgusted look. Hiyashi himself had already impaled both his targets with his hands. Naruto heard a scream and saw the boy who had been ordered to poison him carrying an unconscious Hinata. Naruto roared in rage and leapt after him. The boy would have the one he was promised. But the fool didn't check behind him or he would have seen Naruto flash several hand signs, teleporting Hinata back to the house. The boy noticed this and looked behind him. Naruto flew at him and his fist connected with the surprised boy's jaw, lifting up, throwing him into a tree. He stood up and prepared for the fight. Naruto glared at him. You die, prick. I already lost her once. Someone like you won't take her from me again. His eyes were red. An intense chakra covered him. He doubled over in pain as his body changed. He felt his canines elongate and his nails grow and sharpen. He felt a funny feeling just above his rear followed by a ripping sound. Looking behind him through the pane he saw 9 fluffy blonde tails with red tips. He felt his ears change also. He raised his hands and discovered fox ears. As soon as the pain hit, it was gone. Naruto stood tall, his tail swishing behind him angrily, his red eyes burning in the night. The boy saw him and hissed, "Demon," before he charged Naruto. The Hanyu struck with a closed fist, putting the boy into the tree again, snapping it. He raised his hand and flashed those 500 hand signs in 2 seconds. He brought his hands in front of him, concentrating it in his palms. Demonic arts. Flash fire. A flamethrower-like spewed of fire flew from his hands, engulfing the boy in flames. The boy screamed in pain as the mighty fire burned him to a crisp. Naruto watched, feeling almost sorry for the boy. But he wouldn't let anyone touch his Hina-chan. He turned away from the smoldering body when he noticed something. His fox characteristics didn't pass. He sighed. Hiashi would want to hear this. Naruto arrived back at the Hyuga compound where Hiashi was comforting a distraught Hinata. Thanks to his now complete fusion with the fox, he could hear everything. "I'm sure he is fine. Naruto is a very powerful shinobi. Remember, he has Fluffy with him." Hinata smiled a little at the name her father called the demon. Naruto dropped down behind them both, unseen. "Actually, I'm the fuzzy one now," he said, rubbing the back of his head. Hiashi turned around and his eyes went wide in shock. Hinata, however, had a completely different reaction. "Aw, so cute," she squealed as she ran and hugged one of Naruto's fluffy tails. Naruto only chuckled while Hiashi stood up and looked at him. "Naruto? Is that you? I mean, are you truly you?" he asked. "Yeah, me and the Baka fox fused, making me a Hanyu. I was scared of how you guys might react to this, but seeing Hinata's reaction, I'm wondering how many people will actually be scared or do what she's doing," he said. He used one of his tails to pull her closer to him. She let out a small "ep" before she found herself in a warm embrace from Naruto. Hiashi only shook his head, smiling. "Actually, the children would love you," he said as Hanabi came back from the dining room. She caught sight of Naruto and gave the exact same squeal Hinata did. Next thing he knew, he had Hinata scratching him behind his left ear while Hanabi was petting his tail. Naruto's eyes went half open. "Aw man, that feels really good," he said, almost purring. Hiashi just shook his head, smiling. Tonight just got interesting. Tsunade burst through the front door of the Hyuga compound, looking around frantically. "Where is he? Where is he?" she shouted. Hiashi came into the room, smiling. "He is trying to avoid the younger Hyuga children. They seem to have fallen in love with his tails." Tsunade snorted with laughter as a mental image of a tailed Naruto came to mind. She shook her head. "Where is he?" she asked as they walked to the sparring yard. "I really don't know. He hides rather well. Apparently, he has gotten even more cunning." Tsunade knew how to get him to show up. She took a deep breath. "Naruto, I have an S-rank mission for you," she shouted. Sure enough, Naruto dropped down next to her, looking around frantically. "Please tell me this isn't a joke. This kids won't leave my damn tails alone." Tsunade did a double take as she took in his appearance. She had to restrain herself from petting him. "Actually, it was. I needed to see if you truly had fused." Naruto huffed in annoyance. "Yes, I have. Kyuubi is no longer here," he said, irritated. Well, I want to see Yuo first thing in the morning for a checkup. If I'm satisfied, I'll be sending you, Sakura, Hinata, Shino, Kiba, Kakashi, and an Anbu with you. Alright, see you guys later," he said, running out the door as he caught sight of the mass of young Hyuga toddlers coming over to him, giggling. Tsunade only laughed as she left. Naruto hurried through the back alleys, running on all fours as he made his way to Tsunade's office. Thankfully, it was early and the inhabitants of the village were still rousing from their deep sleep and not out on the streets. He made a sharp right turn and found himself face to face with Kakashi. Naruto backed up slightly as Kakashi's exposed eye went wide. "Hey sensei, how are you?" he asked nervously. Do I even want to know?" Kakashi asked, still eyeing his student. "I'll tell you later. I just have to get to the Hokage's office." "Oh, right, we have a mission today." "Well, get going. I'll see you later. Just don't give us that lame, 'I got lost on the road to life' garbage you always give us," Naruto said as Kakashi walked away. Naruto shook his head and proceeded to hightail it to the Hokage Tower. He didn't run into anyone else, thankfully. It only took him 30 seconds to get to the door and knock. He heard a tired, "Come in." As quickly as he could, he entered the room, shutting the door behind him. He looked over to see a grin on Tsunade's face. "Well, you look foxy today, Naruto." Naruto groaned as she said this. "Please, no puns today. I already ran into Kakashi-sensei today. Just get this checkup over with." Tsunade nodded and walked around the desk, using a medical diagnostic to check him. It only took 15 minutes to complete. She nodded and went back behind her desk. "Well, everything appears to be fine. I don't see any biological problems. You're as healthy as you were last week." Naruto let out a sigh of relief. "Thanks, that makes me feel better. Now, you just have to tell your team." She smirked evilly. "Oh crap. Hinata, Shino, Kiba, Sakura, Tenten, Kakashi, Neji, and Lee waited at the front gate for their final teammate. They looked around for the blonde. No one but Hinata and Kakashi knew of the blonde's current predicament. When Kakashi had asked Hinata about it, she had giggled and told him how he had gotten it. To say Kakashi was impressed was an understatement. Now, they waited patently for their now Hanyu teammate to arrive. Naruto was already there, wondering how to explain this to them. Before he could answer, he heard Hinata activate her blood limit. He cursed as she looked for him. Sure enough, she found him. "Come out, Naruto-kun. I know you're hiding in that tree over there." Everyone turned to the tree and looked at it confused. "You guys promise not to freak?" he called out, hesitantly. "Of course, Baka. Why would we?" Sakura asked, irritated. "Naruto, just come out. They'll find out eventually," Kakashi called, barely containing his amusement. Naruto grumbled and dropped for the tree. He walked over to them as their jaws fell. He stopped in front of them and scratched the back of his head. "See, I'm kinda different today." "Naruto, what happened to you?" Sakura asked, concerned. "I'll explain everything once we make camp. Now, let's go get Sasuke." "Naruto, how did you know we were going after him? You weren't at the briefing this morning." Tenten pointed out. "He ran into me this morning after the brief and I filled him in." Kakashi pulled out his favorite book. "Oh, well, let's go." Naruto started toward the gate when a familiar voice cries out. "Naruto, hold up a second." He turned to see Jiraiya running towards them, book in hand. It only took him a few seconds to arrive. He stopped in front of Naruto, panting. When he looked up, he grinned. "Naruto no Kitsune. Nice ring to it." He grinned. "Arrow Baka, what do you want?" "Just want to give you this. It's a book about the topic we were discussing before we got back. Look at page 12, you should find it interesting," he said with a lecherous grin. Naruto thanked him for the book and he and his team left. They made good time during their trip, making it to the campsite 5 miles out from the town where Sasuke was last seen. Now, the Leaf Ninja turned on Naruto, waiting for his explanation. He sighed and sat down on a nearby log. "Alright, to be blunt, I was the container for the 9-tailed fox. My father, the fourth, sealed the demon in me because even he couldn't kill it. Now, I have fused with the Baka fox and have become half-demon. Any questions?" He looked at them and saw several of them slack-jawed. Everyone was staring at him in amazement. He waited for one of them to say anything. Hinata, however, only beamed at him. She rushed over and hugged him tightly, planting a kiss on his lips. She broke away, smiling. "This is great. You know who your father is. I'm so happy for you, Naru-kun." She nuzzled his neck. "Thanks Hina-chan," he said, wrapping her in a hug that included all 9 of his tails. "When did this happen?" Kiba shouted. "Yosh." The youthful flames of love burned brightly in them. Lee shouted, striking his nice guy pose. Naruto was confused. They were more worried about him dating Hinata than about him being part demon. Guys? What about what I just told you? Man, we know you're you. We grew up with you. We trust you. So what if you're part demon now? Who cares? You're still the same Naruto we've grown to love. You're our friend, comrade, and most importantly, a brother. You've become the glue that holds us together. You know how to get us to laugh. You know how to get us to fight to our last bit of strength. Hell, you even know how to get us motivated. You're Naruto Uzumaki, #1 most unpredictable, kunkel-headed ninja in the Leaf Village. Kiba said, dropping an arm around Naruto's shoulder. Yeah, this changes nothing about how we view you. We're your friends no matter what. Sakura smiled, dropping her arm around Kiba. Hinata stood on his left, arm around his waist while his was around her shoulders. Yosh, this means nothing to our flames of youth. Friendship sits above all else as the most sacred of things. Lee said, placing his arm around Sakura's waist. Yeah, the guy clone is right. You're my student, no matter what. Sure, you're a bit of a kunkle head, but you've grown on me. You've become my friend. The first one in a long time. Kakashi placed a hand on Hinata's shoulder. Logically, I can see that you are not the Kyuubi. You are a friend. As much as your behavior jumps across the charts, you've always been kind to us. You are one of my first friends. Shino stood beside Lee. Yeah, you helped my family out of debt. You also helped me out a few times. As far as I'm concerned, nothing's changed. Except you've become more fluffy. Tenten smiled, coming up besides Kakashi. Yes, you beat me. And you helped me to see that nothing is written in stone. And, you've brought out the best in my cousin. Naruto Uzumaki is who you are. Even a few furry tales can't change that. Neji said matter-of-factly. Even though you have changed, and I have yet to truly know you, I have learned from Kakashi-senpai that you are honorable and hold Thsoe precious to you above all others. You are a true ninja. Yamato said, completing the circle. Naruto looked at his friends. He felt tears well up. Using his sleeve, he whipped his eyes. He looked back up and smiled at them. Thanks guys. That means a lot. The rest returned his smile. Naruto sat up, flipping through the book Jiraiya had given him before he had headed out. It was interesting to say the least. He found out that Hanyus like himself tended to live extraordinarily long lives. They were damn near immortal. And it was harder than hell to kill one. Even pursing its heart didn't guarantee it would die. He finished up page 11 and got to the page Jiraiya had said he would be interested in. The title on the top said, Hanyus and Their Mates. Naruto was intrigued. He looked over the OAGE and read, a Hanyu is a very powerful creature, inheriting the great power of the demon it is related to. However, Hanyus have been known to take humans as mates. The downside is that the Hanyu will eventually outlast its mate. However, there is a way to prevent this. All Hanyus have the ability to turn one other into a Hanyu. But, there is risk. If the Hanyu's mate does not love them to the deepest departments, more than life itself, the person in question will have their souls shatter. They will forever be forced to walk the earth, a shattered and miserable being. However, if the love is pure, purer than even the whitest snow, the person will become a Hanyu. Due to the risks, most Hanyu tend to seek out others of their kind to mate with. Naruto thought of Hinata. He didn't have to wonder if she loved him that way. Having seen her use that last bit of stretch she had to tell him she loved him, showed him she had already beaten that Rikuremon. He read on. For one to make another Hanyu, one must engage in the most intimate act of trust and love. During intercourse, the Hanyu will channel their chakra to their organs. Once the chakra comes into contact with their mate, an undescribable feeling of completeness will envelope the two. Once it is complete, their mate will take on the appearance of the appropriate gender of Hanyu similar to their mates, i.e. fox to fox, wolf to wolf, dragon to dragon. Also, if one's mate is close to death, doing the above actions, i.e. turning on the Hanyu's mate into a Hanyu, it will save the person from death. Naruto shut the book, blushing. He would ask Hinata if she wanted to do that when they dated a little longer than 4 days. Not that he didn't want to, it just wouldn't be appropriate. He shook his head before crawling into his tent when Yamato relieved him. He had no idea of knowing that he would be forced to choose between tuning Hinata into a Hanyu or watching her die again. Naruto woke the next morning to the sound of a startled gasp. Opening his eyes, he sat up quickly, looking around for the source of the noise. He found it in the form of a wide-eyed Hinata holding the book he had been reading last night. Naruto looked at her confused as he took the book from her gently. Glancing at the page, he saw that it was the one about Hanyus and their mates. He blushed slightly when he realized what it probably looked like. He gave her an apologetic smile as he closed the book. Don't worry Hina-chan, I wasn't planning on doing any of that. Especially not when we've been together only 5 days. And even if we did do it, I wouldn't turn you into a Hanyu without checking with you first. He gave her another small smile as started to exit the tent when she spoke up. Yes, she said softly. He turned around, confused. Yes what? She looked him in the eye, blush still in place. Yes, I'll do it. He looked at her and shook. Don't you know what could happen to you? I won't let that happen. He placed a hand on her cheek. She gave him one of her dazzling smiles. She placed her hand on his and held it in place on her soft cheek. I want to be with you forever. If becoming a Hanyu makes sure it happens, I'll do it. Naruto sighed. He gave her a smile. We'll talk later. Naruto was going through the village, asking around town if anyone had seen Sasuke. Thankfully, he found out how to revert back to his human form when need be, so the villagers wouldn't be spooked. He was just finishing up asking the 15th person about Sasuke when he felt himself pulled away. He closed his eyes, waiting for the feeling to disappear. When it did, he opened his eyes and saw the death god before him. The death god looked at him thoughtfully. So, Uzumaki, I see you are enjoying your second chance at life. Naruto nodded his head, sitting lotus-style before the innocent entity. Very much. Thank you again. I am pleased you are happy. But, on to business. How goes your end of the bargain? Not well. I know that Orochimaru is where Sasuke is. Once I find him, I'll find Hubby. The death god nodded his head, approvingly. Very well reasoned. Now, to discuss the finer details of our agreement. What details? You said that I only had to kill Hubby to get a second chance. Naruto yelled, standing to his feet. The death god felt his temper flare. Listen here, young one. I will take one person from you every day that you failed to kill Orochimaru. For every soul he has tarnished, I will take a pure one from you. Naruto felt himself get angry. He was threatening to take his friends. No, you take them, and I'll come back here and rip your head off and shove it up your ass. I'll kill Hubby. Don't worry about that, but if you take anyone from me, I'll say fuck our deal and let Hubby live. Hell, I might even join him just to spite your ass. He said with a smirk. The death god rose to his full height and glared at Naruto. How dare you threaten me? I control your fate. Like I told Neji all those years ago, I make my own fate. Now send me back so I can find that snake bastard and get your rotting ass off my case. He yelled. The death god snapped his fingers. Think Q from Star Trek, original Q. And Naruto found himself standing outside the small village at camp. He quickly went through his mind of who the Diadan god would try to take from him first and his heart ached. It would be Hinata. He knew what he had to do to protect her. Even if it broke his heart. Hinata was walking back to camp, feeling depressed. She had been unable to find any leads on where Sasuke was, and she wondered if anyone had been lying. As she came to the campsite, she was met by a normal-looking Naruto. He looked at her sadly as she approached. She looked at him worriedly. What's wrong? I need to talk to you. Now, please. He didn't even wait for a response. He turned and headed off into the woods, followed by a confused Hinata. She couldn't help but be reminded of the treasure box mission where Naruto had decided to be a real trailblazer and push on through the underbrush without flinching, whereas she came out with cuts and scraps. This time, however, it was clear enough to avoid the cuts. They eventually came to a pool of water with a blue waterfall. Naruto sat down near the edge, patting the ground next to him for her to sit. She complied and sat next to him. Turning to him, she saw he was still sad. Naru-kun, what's wrong? Hina-chan, I don't know how to saw this. I'll just do this in the only way I can. He took a deep breath as he looked up into the darkening sky. He looked back at her and began to sing. One more kiss could be the best thing. But one more lie could be the worst. And all these thoughts are never resting. He placed his hand on her cheek, stroking her cheek with his thumb. And you're not something I deserve. She stared right back into his eyes, wondering what it is he wanted to say. In my head there's only you now. This world falls on me. In this world there's real and make-believe. And this seems real to me. She placed her hand on his, feeling the warmth from it. She could see his eyes watering. You love me but you don't know who I am. I'm torn between this life I lead and where I stand. And you love me but you don't know who I am. So let me go. Let me go. She felt her gut clench as his hand slid away from her cheek. He turned and faced Tay Waterfall, tears starting to fall. It hurt him to do this, but if she lived, he would bear it. I dream ahead to what I hope for. And I turn my back on loving you. How can this love be a good thing? When I know what I'm going through. Hinata felt tears falling as she listened. Why would he be doing this? Was it something she did? Did something force him to this choice? In my head there's only you now. This world falls on me. In this world there's real and make-believe. And this seems real to me. You love me but you don't know who I am. I'm torn between this life I lead and where I stand. You love me but you don't know who I am. So let me go. Just let me go. Let me go. And no matter how hard I try, I can't escape these things inside I know. I know WW. When all the pieces fall apart, you will be the only one who knows. Who knows? You love me but you don't know who I am. I'm torn between this life I lead and where I stand. And you love me but you don't know who I am. So let me go. Just let me go. And you love me but you don't. You love me but you don't. You love me but you don't know who I am. And you love me but you don't. You love me but you don't. You love me but you don't know me. He closed his eyes as he finished, tears still falling. His heart was hurt and he knew hers was. He opened his eyes and whipped the tears away and looked over at her, sadly, seeing her crying. He felt his heart break even more. He didn't want to hurt her, but he was. She looked at him, tears streaks on her cream-colored cheeks. Why? Did I do something to push you away? Did I do anything wrong? She asked softly. He pulled her close, despite his better judgment. Hey, it's nothing you did. It's just that. I have a job to do and I don't want to lose you from it. I have to distance myself from everyone. Even if they hate me, it will keep them safe. He closed his eyes. He knew it would be the best for everyone if he left. At least they would hate him for leaving, just like they hated Sasuke for leaving. Hinata gave a muffled sob and placed her head on his shoulder. Please, I want to face it with you. I don't care about the risks. I just want to be with you. He felt new tears well up. I'm sorry. I can't. I don't want to lose you again. Again? She asked, raising her tear-drenched face to look him in the eyes. Before he could rectify his statement, he heard a snicker behind him. Q3 doors down going down in flames. Hey, who'd have thought I would run into the dobe? Naruto stood up quickly, speeding through hand signs. He slammed his palms on his waist. Storage summon. Rosin blade. A katana, sheathed, appeared on his waist as he turned to face his opponent. He rested his hand on the sword's hilt, glaring at a dark-haired young man with red eyes smirking at him. Teme, how's Orochimaru's traitor? He spat at him. Sasuke visibly angered. He gripped the hilt of his blade until his knuckles whitened. Insolent fool. I have gained power from Lord Orochimaru. And I'm not gay. He shouted. Says everyone who hangs out with a gay pedophile, you emo bastard. Naruto sneered. Sasuke shouted something unintelligible and lunged, drawing his blade at the same moment. Naruto quickly brought his own katana up his face, lengthwise and deflected Sasuke's own blade. The Sharingan warrior flipped back and readied himself for combat. Both shinobi walked counterclockwise, glaring at each other, daring the other to make a move. A leaf fell from its tree. They tensed. The leaf hit the ground and they lunged again. This time, Naruto brought his blade down in an overhead strike. Sasuke deflected and shoved his blade towards Naruto's chest. The blonde brought his blade up and parried Sasuke's. They came forward, blades crossed, both fighting for the advantage. Naruto locked eyes with Sasuke. The Uchiha glared at him. Give up now, brother. Come home with us. We'll take on Itachi together. As a team, we can beat him. Naruto pleaded. No, I must do this myself. Give up, brother, and I'll let you and your whore live. He sneered. Naruto felt his blood boil. His ears elongated into his fox ears as his tails burst forth. His eyes stayed blue as they gained slit-like pupils. His canines grew as his whisker marks darkened. He snarled at the traitor. No one calls her that. I'll gut you. Sasuke Teme. He shouted, kicking Sasuke in the gut. The boy stumbled back and glared. Just try, Naruto Baka. He shot back with a hint of a smile. Naruto recognized it as the one Sasuke had given him when they had become friends. He couldn't help himself but to give him a toothy grin himself. Oh, I'll do more than try, Teme. They launched into a flurry of attacks again, striking, blocking, countering. Sasuke began to sweat as he deflected another side swipe from the blonde. He flipped back, knowing that Naruto had more stamina and would eventually win. He had to do something. Then, it hit him. Grinning, he pulled out a small bottle, holding a yellow liquid. Naruto caught the scent and recognized it as a potion. Sasuke undid the cap and poured the contents on the end of his blade. See this? It's one of the few potions with no known man-made cure. One cut from the end of the blade will ensure you die in 3 days, regardless of your new abilities. Only a snake relies on its venom. I'll make sure you come back, Teme. Even if it kills me. Sasuke responded by leaping into another flurry of attacks. He slashed, slammed and clashed his blade against Naruto's, gaining neither ground nor hit. He separated himself from him and saw that Naruto was tiring. He also finally found a weakness in his stance. If he attacked the chest at shoulder height from a 45-degree angle, his blade would meet flesh. Hinata had noticed this too. And she knew he would be hit this time. Not if I can prevent it. She whispered, moving to get between Naruto and Sasuke. They lunged at each other slamming blades together. The forest was filled with the sound of clashing steel as the two former friends slammed against each other, trying desperately to win the battle. Naruto leapt back, but he didn't expect Sasuke to leap at him. He brought his blade up, knowing full well that he would be hit in the only weak point of his T-Satins. He closed his eyes and waited for the blade to hit. It never came. Instead, he threw his eyes open when he heard a sharp intake of breath. Standing in front of him was Hinata. He felt his stomach drop. Looking at Sasuke, he saw horror on his face. You fool. If you hadn't have done that, you'd lie. Now you condemned yourself to death. Better myself than Naruto-kun. He is still needed in this world. And I'll be damned if I'll let you kill him. Stupid bitch. Sasuke roared, slapping her, knocking her away. Naruto let out a roar of rage and pain as he slashed at Sasuke. The boy barely blocked the shots as his former friend went into a rage, trying to kill him. Sasuke felt sorry for what he had caused. He flew through a dozen one-handed seals and vanished in a swirl of leaves. Naruto gave one last cry of rage as he turned to Hinata. He sheathed his blade and dropped next to her. He could see the small cut where the potion blade had hit. He also could see the handprint on her face. He began to cry until she placed a hand on his cheek. She gave him a small smile. Don't cry for me. I made my choice. And I have 3 days more to be with you. At least I die happy. Naruto pulled her close, crying even harder. Those had been the same words she had said last time he had seen her die. He heard footsteps crashing as the others arrived. Kasuke dropped next to Naruto as Sakura moved to examine Hinata. The others formed a protective circle around them. Naruto. What happened? Kakashi asked. Teme showed up and decided to fight. He tried to hit me with a potioned blade, but got Hinata when she took the hit for me. Naruto whipped his tears on his sleeve. I found the potion, but I can't get rid of it. I can't even extract it. Sakura said, panicking. It has no known man-made cure. I'll be dead in 3 days. Hinata said quietly. Naruto thought back on everything they had been through. Everything. Their dates, their conversation early this morning. Then it hit him. He grinned. Naruto. This is not the time to be grinning. Sasuke yelled, tears falling. Actually, I know of a cure. He said, smiling at Hinata. I thought it couldn't be cured by us. Kakashi looked at him, puzzled. True, man can't cure it, but a certain act that a Hanyu participates in can. He said, giving Hinata a knowing look. She blushed when she realized what he was talking about. Everyone else looked puzzled. How? They asked simultaneously. By turning Hinata into a Hanyu. Naruto stood up and helped Hinata to her feet. His team simply stared at him. Kakashi was the first to speak up. You're sure it will work? Positive. The demonic chakra alone will vaporize the poison from her system. That and she'll be immune to it. He said simply, pulling her close. What about Uncle? Neji looked at Hinata. He'll understand. Even though he doesn't show it, he loves me and doesn't want to lose me. Please, this is my choice. She rested her head on Naruto's shoulder. Alright, what do you have to do? Kakashi asked Naruto. I can't tell you guys how. All I can say is that we have to be away from all of you for privacy. What the fuck? You perv. You just can't keep it in your pants, can you? Sakura said hotly. Naruto, a master of lies, quickly covered his ass. No, that is not what we will be doing. The reason for privacy is that the intense chakra will probably kill you. Transitioning her normal human chakra to demonic will become so unstable that only a Hanyu can even be close to her. A normal human would be vaporized from it. Also, the fact that she loves me will prevent her feral nature that will surface from attacking me. I'm the only one who can be nearby. Oh, Sakura said, realizing what he said made sense. Kakashi nodded his head, understanding, or at least trying to appear to understand what he had just been told. So, where will you go? Tenten asked. There's a cave 6 miles to the north. We'll do it there. I'll set up silencing and protection seals around the cave so that any Demoni's chakra won't harm anything. And the silencing seals will be so that a hiker won't get curious and enter the cave, and getting killed. Alright, when can we expect you back? Kiba asked him, scratching Akumaru's right ear. Probably no more than a day. It's a long process, plus she'll need to rest afterwards. Alright, get going. We'll stay here for the night and meet up with you at midday. Good luck, Kakashi said, giving him a wink. Naruto looked at him confused for a second before chuckling. Of course the old pervert had figured it out, but wasn't saying anything. Naruto picked Hinata up bridal style and leapt off into the trees for the cave. It only took the blonde an hour to get to the cave, having stopped several times along the way to make sure Hinata was alright. Upon reaching the cave, he sent a fox summon into the cave to check to see if anything had taken up residence. The small 4-tailed red fox walked back out and sat in front of him. Nothing is in here, master. It is safe. Thanks, Yahiko. The fox vanished in a poof of smoke. Naruto walked into the CVAE, still holding Hinata bridal style as she leaned her head on his walked about 6 meters in and came to a stop at a wall. Looking at it, one would think it was nothing more than a stone wall, nothing special. However, a closer inspection would reveal a whirlpool symbol dead center of the wall. Naruto set Hinata on her feet and bit his thumb. Flashing Sizz hand signs, he placed his hands on the mark. Uzumaki seal release. He shouted. The wall began to glow as a Stein archway appeared. Naruto gestured for Hinata to enter first. She entered and felt her jaw drop slightly. She was standing in what could only be described as a house. Looking around, she took in the white walls, the doorways leading to different rooms and a stairwell in front of her, going up. Naruto followed a moment later, sealing the home. He walked up beside her, smiling. Welcome to the Uzumaki household. Hidden from enemies and pests of all kinds. No safer place in the world. Hinata looked to him in awe. You live here? Yes and no. I've only been here twice. Once when Eros Sennin and I were on training, and before you I mean, when I was gone from the village on my vacation last month. He said quickly. Hinata didn't buy it. Naruto, what are you not telling me? He sighed. He had to tell her everything. Alright, let's go to the kitchen. I'll tell you everything, I promise. She nodded, satisfied with this as she followed him through the door on the left. Hinata sat at the scrubbed wooden table, waiting for a pacing Naruto to talk. He finally stopped and looked at her after pacing for 3 minutes. He took a deep breath as he sat down. Hinata, I am not the Naruto Uzumaki you know. Well, I am, but I'm not from this time period. You see, I'm actually from the future, 5 years to be exact. I was killed defeating a dangerous organization's weapon. However, the death god decided to spare me and made a deal. The terms he said at the onset of the deal were that he would allow me to come back to life in this period as long as I make sure Hibiteme is killed. Hinata simply stared at him, wide-eyed. She knew he wouldn't make something like this up, but it still sounded like something out of a movie. He saw her face and looked at her sadly. What about us? Were we together? She wanted to say married, but stopped herself. No, we weren't, he said sadly. Oh, what happened to me? You seem close to tears every time you've looked at me. You were killed. I failed to protect you. Moments before you died, you told me how you truly felt. I was an idiot, Hinata. I was so blinded by my childhood crush that even after it disappeared, I never noticed how you had felt. Years. I lost years that I could have been with you because of my stupidity. I'm nothing more than a loser. It should have been me killed there, not you. Tears began to fall as he told her. Her own eyes watered as she looked at him. He thought that he was responsible. She got up and walked over to him. Bending down, she placed her hands on his face, bringing them eye to eye. She spoke to him softly. Just answer me one question. When did you realize how you felt? Once I searched my feelings, I realized I had loved you since the talk we had before the 3rd round of the Chunin exams. It's just that I was too dense to even notice my own feelings. Then you've done nothing wrong. Even if it was late, you knew how you felt. And now, you have a second chance to fix it all. Naruto, you're not a loser, and not an idiot. I won't say you weren't dense, because sometimes you are. We have each other now. That's all that matters. Now, she raised him out of his chair to his feet, wrapping her arms around Dhi's neck. Weren't we both to do something important? She asked, smiling. He grinned at her as he kissed her gently on the lips. Yeah, now that you mention it, yeah. Lemon, you've been warned, so don't cry to me you didn't know. He pressed his lips against hers, trailing his tongue along her lips, asking for entry. She accepted. His tongue darted in and D began wrestling hers for dominance, causing her to moan, enjoying the feeling. Naruto placed his hands on her rear and hosseted her up. She got the message and wrapped her legs around his waist as he stumbled out of the room and up the stairs. They were still locked in a battle of tongues as he entered the bedroom. Hinata used her hands and kept him locked into the kiss. He pulled away and took a breath before he fell onto the bed. There was a slight bounce, causing Hinata to giggle. Naruto smiled as he stood up. He pulled his shirt up and over his head, tossing it to the side as Hinata undid her coat. She shrugged it off and just threw it, not caring where it landed. Naruto looked at her, wide-eyed. She saw this and frowned. What, is something wrong? She asked, propping herself up on her elbws, her raven hair falling on the bed like a waterfall. No, it's just that, you're so beautiful, he said, leaning down for a kiss. He moved from her lips, top her jawline, to her neck, down to just above her breasts. She moaned as she felt the touch of his lips on her flesh, feeling herself become aroused just by his touch. He broke the kiss and looked her over, taking in her perfect hourglass figure. He gave her a perverted grin. She cocked her head slightly in confusion before his hands gripped the bottom of her tank top. Getting the idea, she smiled and nodded. Naruto removed her tank top and mesh undershirt one shot, exposing her well-developed chest being held back by a lavender-colored bra. Didn't even reach for it, instead, removing her pants to expose matching lavender panties. She shuddered as she felt the cool air hit her exposed flesh. Naruto ran his hand gently across her toned stomach and rested it on her hips. He leaned down and kissed her gently as she gripped his pants. As he came away, she lightly bit his lower lip. You need to take THSES off, Naru-kun, she said in a husky, why voice. Naruto's head nodded so quick, you'd think it would pop off as he removed his pants and boxers, standing over her, completely nude. She looked at his hardened member with wide eyes. She had no idea it would be so large. Maybe the fusing had something to do with it. He gave her a sly grin. You need to take off your clothes too, my Hina-chan. She smiled as she undid her bra, tossing it to the side. She reached down and slowly removed her panties, enjoying the hungry look on his face as he watched. When they were halfway down, he took the initiative and fully removed them. Sorry, you damn teasing was really getting to me. That's the point, she said playfully. He smiled as he looked her over, seeing her juices already flowing. He nodded, satisfied. I see the technique I picked up from Ero Sennin worked nicely. Nothing. He smiled as he leaned down and kissed her. She held the kiss, wrapping her arms around his neck, coming up as he did. Using one hand, she reached down and grabbed his member, making it twitch in anticipation and getting a moan from him. She positioned him to enter her as she was half sitting, both arms firmly secured around his neck. He broke away and looked into her eyes. He saw love there and knew it would be all right. He looked down and became confused by what he saw. He looked back up at her. I see 2 holes here. Unless you have a roadmap, I need you to put me in the general area that is correct. He said, seriously. Yeah, I didn't know there was 2 either. Took my best friend's girlfriend to enlighten me when I asked her about it as a joke. Learned more about female anatomy than I did in health and anatomy and physiology. She giggled and used one of her hands to point to the appropriate one. Oh, thanks, he said, relieved. Slowly, he entered, sliding himself in as she gasped and shuddered from this new sensation. He stopped when he felt himself press against a barrier. He looked at her. This is going to hurt you, isn't it? Yes, she said, softly, still breathing heavy. All right, I'll do it fast. Oh, better start gathering my chakra. His face furrowed slightly as he began to gather his chakra. Hinata gasped in pleasure as she felt the heat radiating off of his member. It felt as if it were pulsating. She shuddered as he pulled back slightly. He looked at her for a moment before thrusting into her, implanting her on his member. She let out a scream of pain and dug her nails into his back, breaking her barrier. She sobbed into his shoulder as they sat there. He didn't move. After what felt like an eternity, her sobs stopped and she kissed him. He nodded and began to slowly thrust into her. Her pain quickly evaporated into pleasure as she began to moan and pant as he entered her. They developed a rhythm. When he thrusted in, she'd thrust her hips toward him, taking him deeper. She was laying on her back, head thrown back, eyes shut tightly as she took labored breaths. She began to feel a new sensation. Her mind begabbed aloud as her body felt warm all over. She gasped as her eyes shot open as she climaxed. Naruto let out a deep grunt as he climaxed after her. When he did, a jolt of energy shot through them both. The world burst into a white haze for them both as they laid there. A red chakra began to envelop them both. In a bright flash of light, they lost consciousness. Naruto woke with a start the next morning, not remembering where he was. Looking around dazed, he saw Hinata curled up next to him, head nestled on his shoulder. There was a difference, however. Hinata now had 3 whisker marks on each cheek and had gotten fox ears, raven-colored. He could also see 9 fluffy raven-colored tails. Checking himself, he saw that he had ended up in his Hanyu form. After looking at the ceiling confused, his mind finally unfogged, allowing him to remember what had happened. He smiled as he looked back to Hinata. He was just reaching out a hand to stroke her cheek when he felt himself pulled away. Within seconds, he found himself standing, fully clothed, in front of the death god. What got him was that it was smiling. "Alright, Uzumaki, you win. I won't take anyone from you. But you still have to make sure hubby is killed." "I will. Just be patent." "Well, I suppose so. Well, I guess that is the best I can hope for. Good luck and sorry I can't be more help." "It's cool," Naruto said as he felt himself rush back to where he was. He smiled as he resumed what he was doing before his meeting. Running his thumb over her soft cheek, he watched as her brow furrowed before her eyes slowly opened. Lavender met blue as she smiled. "Good morning," she said, stretching her arms before wrapping them around Naruto. "Yes, it is." He glanced at the alarm and saw that it was 10:30. "Damn. Komon Hina-chan, we have to get dressed and meet the others. Do we have time for a shower?" "Yeah, you go first. It'll be quicker together," she said with a smile. Naruto kissed her. That's true. After a rather playful shower, they dressed and headed out to meet the others. Before they had left, he checked to make sure the poison was gone and was happy to see it was. They covered the 6 miles Kachikali, landing on the outside of camp. Naruto took Hinata's hand and walked into the clearing. To say they were shocked was an understatement. They approached the 2, jaws agoi. Sakura was the first to say anything. "Whoa, I guess Naruto knew what he was doing. Well, let me check you out," she said. It only took her a few seconds to run her diagnostic. She nodded, satisfied. Nothing in her system. Everyone hugged them at the news, congratulating Naruto on whatever he did. Everyone but Neji, whose face fell into horror. He had his Byakugan active. "Lady Hinata, your barrier. It's broken." At this, Sakura and Tenten rounded on Naruto. Luckily, Kakashi and Yamato stepped between them. "Girls, stop." He did what he had to do to save her. He screwed her. How the hell did that help? They shouted. Simple. The way to turn another into a Hanyu is to mate with them. Yamato said simply. "What, you damn blonde pervert." Hinata stepped up and faced them. "I consented to it. He didn't want to in the first place, but the fact that it would save my life made him want to. Even if he already did." Naruto put an arm around her waist, he tails lazily swishing through the air, with hers mimicking his. Sakura and Tenten sighed in defeat. "Alright, but if she becomes pregnant, you had better take care of her," Sakura said. "Of course. I wouldn't have it any other way." "Wait, what?" Hinata asked. "Did you cast a protection jutsu?" "No, I thought you did," Hinata said, nervously. Was all he could say as they headed back Fo Rthe village. Naruto was nervously looking around, almost paranoid that Hiashi would jump out the next bush and kill him for what he had done. Every time he heard a twig break, his head snapped to that direction. Throughout the whole trip, Tenten and Sakura were shooting death glares at him, though not as intense as they had been when they had set off. Now, they were fast approaching the village when Naruto glanced at the team. "You guys won't say anything?" Neji nodded his head, wincing at his sore arms. Hinata had been extremely pissed when she realized that he had looked at her private area. She yelled something about invasion of privacy before she launched a furious attack on him. He looked at the others, seeing them nod at him. He sighed in relief when Kakashi stopped them. "We'll take a break here. Naruto, I need to speak with you in private." The blonde nodded and followed the copy ninja into the woods, well out of earshot of everyone, including Hinata. When they reached a clearing, Kakashi turned to him. "Naruto, I need to know everything about you now. What you have been through, how old you really are, your rank, that sort of thing." Naruto sighed and nodded. "Alright, I'll give you the short and sweet version. I'm 22 years old. I've been through a hell of a lot, including a second invasion attempt, Sasuke's death, Danzo's failed coup, and of course, your wedding." He smiled at the wide-eyed expression on Kakashi's face. "I'm also a Jonin. I've only trained one squad, all are Chunin. After that, I became an Enbu captain. My mask is a kitsune, rather fitting, don't you think? And, I watched the death of Hinata at the hands of Pain, the leader of the Akatsuki, after we defeated them." Kakashi's eye was still wide. "Wait a minute, you said I got married? To who? Please tell me it wasn't that psycho, Anko." He begged. In Konana at a dango shop. A woman with black hair and a skimpy outfit suddenly sneezed as she reached for her dango. She covered her nose and looked around when she stopped. She grinned. "Someone's talking bad about me. And I have a hunch it's Kakashi." She went back to her food, thinking of ways to get the Cyclops screaming in pleasure, pain. "Yeah, Pain, back with Naruto and Kakashi." "No, actually, it was Shizune." Kakashi let out a sigh of relief. He looked back at Naruto. "Who was my best man?" "Why, your best friend of course." Naruto said, beaming. "But I don't have any best friends. Guy's kind of like a friend, but I'd never chose him as best man." "Me, you chose me. We became good friends when you were teaching me how to do nature manipulation. Though, you chose to say that you really started to love me. At the same time I was trying to add my chakra element into the Rasengan, making it complete. I eventually figured out what you were trying to say, but being me, it took a few months. Sorry, I've never been one to understand that people hear things different from how I try to say them." He said sheepishly. "Don't sweat it. It took the love of my life dying in front of me to understand how she felt." Kakashi looked at him sadly. Then he remembered the rest of the conversation. "Wait, you're an Anbu captain? Hi. Then technically, you have tactical command of the mission." I'm just a regular Chunin now. I'll tell Tsunade-sama and we'll let her decide what to do about me. In the meantime, we have to wrap up this conversation. The others are coming." Naruto and Kakashi headed back to meet them, and came upon them halfway back to the resting area. Naruto grinned at Hinata as she looked at him, embarrassed. "Oh, Naruto-kun, are you two done?" He walked over to her, and lightly kissed her. He pulled away, smiling. "Yeah, let's get home. Hopefully, your dad won't kill me until I've explained why we did what we had to." Naruto and his team arrived at the Hokage Tower 20 minutes later. Thankfully, Naruto taught Hinata how to change her form to that of a human's, though she liked the tails she had and didn't want to hide them. Naruto had explained to her that she would be hated as much, if not the same as he was, and he wouldn't allow it. So, she agreed to hide her appearance. It was after he had explained to the Hokage what had happened and handed her the book on the appropriate page that she shook her head smiling. "So, what happens to you two now? After all, you'll outlive all of us." "Well, there are two options. In a millennium, we will have enough chakra to completely become human again. 2, we stay Han-Yus and become guardians of the village for all eternity, raising a family of our own." "I see. Well, in either case, you two will be around for a very long time." Tsunade gave Naruto a smile, "And I know you'll be happy." Naruto returned her smile. 10 minutes later, she dismissed them. Hesitantly, Naruto followed Hinata to her house. He hoped that Hiashi wasn't there, but fate was a cruel mistress. For the Hyuga leader just happened to be waiting for them at the front gates, smiling. He nodded to Naruto. "I see you have figured out how to change to human. It's only a mode. I'm still a Hanyu. And Hinata is, also." He mumbled the last part as they entered his study. Hiashi's eyes went wide. "Excuse me? How can she be a Hanyu?" Naruto took a deep breath after he sat down. Hiashi looked at him over folded hands while Hinata sat next to him, looking at the floor. "Well, it's because of Sasuke Teme. He launched into his explanation of what had happened. He told him that Hinata had been poisoned and that the only way to save her was to turn her into a Hanyu. Hiyashi waited for him to tell him how he did it, but the boy skipped from the point where she had agreed and jumped to after she had been changed. How did you change her? Sir, that's a secret. You never ask a doctor how he cured you. You only care that he did. Hiyashi nodded, accepting his explanation. Very well. It's time for Hinata's checkup anyway. Hiyashi said, standing and walking to the door. He made the come-on gesture and a female Hyuga, possible Naruto's true age, walked in. She smiled at Hinata and gave Naruto a respectful nod. Checkup, Otuo-san? Yes. It's a new procedure that I have implemented. It is mandatory for every Hyuga to be examined to see if any sort of damage is still present after their mission. I can't have my family being harmed by a wound thought to be healed that is in fact untreated. Naruto felt his heart stop. He was screwed. He knew it, and Hinata knew it too. She could only stand, rooted to the spot as the female Hyuga gave her a kind smile. It is all right, Hinata-sama. This will only take a few moments to complete. Then you and Naruto-sama can go and have a nice date. It's not that I scared about you harming me. I'm just scared of what could be found, Umi-chan. Hiyashi looked at her momentarily. He had noticed that when she began to date Naruto, her stutter had, for the most part, vanished. But, yet here it was, plain as day. Something had her spooked, and by the way she kept glancing at Naruto, he knew the boy had something to do with it. Kami save him if a certain barrier in a certain girl was broken. Hiyashi knew that being a ninja, Hinata had strengthened every part of her body so that normal stressful things that would harm a normal woman wouldn't faze her at all. And he had made sure that her aunt Hina had trained her to strengthen her barrier to a point that even the most strenuous training wouldn't tear or break it. The woman smiled at her and activated her Byakugan. She slowly trailed her eyes down the Hyuga heiress, slowly checking her body inch by inch for anything out of the ordinary. Hiyashi noticed that as Umi got closer and closer to the area where the barrier would be, Naruto was slowly moving toward the open door. Hiyashi sent him a look that let him know that if he even tried to run, Hiyashi would put him in the hospital. Naruto gulped and backed up against the wall. That was about the same time a loud gasp was heard. Hiyashi turned to see Umi wide-eyed, staring at the exact spot where the barrier would be. What is it, Umi? He had a feeling about what it could be. Umi looked up at him, eyes still wide. Her barrier. It's been broken. Hiyashi rounded on Naruto. He simply pressed his back against the wall, wide-eyed and terrified. That is how you turned her? He shouted angrily, standing up. It's the only way. I told you, you didn't want to know how I did it. Boy, I am going to skin you alive. Naruto leapt out the window, quickly followed by Hiyashi. Naruto screaming in fear, Hiyashi in rage. Across town, Kakashi was facing a similar dilemma. He was being chased by Anko, who was smiling evilly. Come on, Kakashi-kun. You know you want me. She grinned. Kakashi quickly sped up, running as fast as he could. No, you damned psycho. I want someone sane. What, like Shizune? Anko retorted. Doesn't sound half bad. Kakashi yelled, smiling. Anko let out a sound like an angry bull as Kakashi ended up running side by side with Naruto. They both looked at each other. A psych is after you too? They said at the same time. Behind them, Anko and Hiyashi were tearing up the street, shouting threats and other things at the pair. This was going to be a long day. Hiyashi cornered Naruto 20 minutes later. And judging from the screams of anger across the village, Kakashi had evaded his stalker. But Naruto wasn't so lucky. He was now cornered in a cave 2 miles outside of the village with a very angry Hiyashi bearing down on him. Naruto knew he was going to be beat pretty badly. Lord Hyuga, please, don't hurt me. Why shouldn't I? You fooled around with my daughter, turning her into something like you. He activated his Byakugan and slowly advanced on the blonde ninja. We didn't fool around. I love Hinata. What I did was the only way to save her. I would not have done it otherwise until marriage if we could have found another way to save her. Hiyashi stopped in his tracks, still angry, but more understanding to the situation. He deactivated his eyes and opted to glare at the boy. You love her, you say. Do you know of the marriage laws for my clan? He asked, still glaring at Naruto. No, Lord Hyuga, I do not, Naruto said, pressing his back against the cave wall. 3 ways to marry a Hyuga for an outsider such as yourself. 1 is to gain the blessing of the clan head and the parents of the Hyuga in question. 2 is to fight the other potential suitors to the death to prove that you are strong enough to offer the clan's strong members down the road. 3 is to take the virginity of the clan member in question outside of wedlock. His anger had, for the most part, dissipated. A small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth as he watched the boy put 2 and 2 together. Surprisingly, to Hiyashi at least, Naruto figured it out and his face broke into a wide grin. So, you're saying that in the eyes of your clan, Hinata and I are married? I can live with that. Good. If you had said otherwise, I would have stuck you down. I will be sending the appropriate papers to the Hokage. Now, we must go and explain this to Hinata. Unfortunately, I had not gotten this far in clan laws with her for her to know about this particular item. Hiyashi gave him a small smile, all anger gone. Come, we must inform your wife of the situation. Hi, Otuo-san. Hiyashi only shook his head, smiling. Hinata stood in the hall, still looking human, pressing her index fingers together, waiting in her father to return home. She hoped that he hadn't killed Naruto just for the way he saved her life. She began to pace when her grinning younger sister, Hanabi, entered the front hall. Hey, Nei-chan, I heard you're not a virgin anymore, she said brightly and rather loudly. Hinata turned to her sister, making a shushing gesture. Please, Imoto, I do not want that information spread. Naruto-kun is already in enough trouble with Sakura-chan, Tenten-chan, and Otuo-san. Hanabi gave her sister an, oh, please look. The village is going to know in a few months anyway. Nani? Hinata looked at Hanabi confused. I know you're a Hanyu now. So, I did a little research. Apparently, when you were turned, she said, trying to make the word turned sound naughty, you become so fertile, that impregnation is more than very probable. It's damn near guaranteed. Hanabi. Hinata didn't know what was worse. How she would explain a possible pregnancy to her friends, family, and her father, or the fact that Hanabi was cursing. Come on, Nei-chan. Isn't it your dream to become a mother? And you do want Naruto to be the father. So what the? Hinata placed her hand over her sister's mouth. Imoto, please. Watch your language. It is not appropriate for Itai. Damn. Hinata shook her hand vigorously after her sister bit her palm. Hypocrite. Hanabi said, smiling before Hinata gave her a small smile. I'll get you for that, Imoto. Hanabi smiled at her. I know, Nei-chan. I know. Just as Hanabi left the room, the front door opened, revealing Hiyashi and Naruto, both smiling. Hinata rushed over to Naruto and hugged him. He hugged her and quickly released her. She looked at her father, giving him a thankful smile for not killing Naruto. Hiyashi returned her smile. Hinata, I must speak with you and Naruto in private. Please follow me. Without a word, they followed behind Hiyashi to his study. When they entered the study, he ordered for no one to interrupt him for anything short of an attack on the village. Hinata gave Naruto a questioning look. He only shook his head, smiling. They sat down and looked to Hiyashi, who merely smiled. Hinata, do you remember the laws for outsiders wishing to marry into our clan? For the most part, Otuo-san. Tell me what you remember, Masumi. Hi. Well, for one to marry into our clan, they must do one of 3 things. 1 is to gain the blessing of the clan head and the parents of the Hyuga in question. 2 is to fight the other potential suitors to the death to prove that you are strong enough to offer the clan's strong members down the road. 3 is to. Her face went from concentration into joy and happiness. Exactly. Now, I have some papers for you two to fill out to make it official, he said, rummaging through his desk, pulling out 2 sheets of paper. Naruto read his and noticed how short it was. It read, Hyuga marriage contract, for the husband. Contractees. Hyuga. Hinata Hyuga, heiress, 15. Outsider. Naruto Uzumaki, 15. I Naruto Uzumaki, confirm that by Hyuga law, regarding marriage into the Hyuga clan with the aforementioned Hyuga, have fulfilled one of the 3 requirements to marry Hinata Hyuga. The actions that resulted in our Unuion are, Hyuga Marigai Law, Part 3, Clause 2, UAL intercourse outside of marriage. I fully understand the law and will stand by it until the day I die. Naruto looked over it and saw an area for him to sign. He looked up at Hiyashi, confused. How's my name already on this? It's common practice to place the name of the Hyuga's current boyfriend on the sheet once they begin dating. But, in most cases with the heir, or in this case, the heiress's case, the first boyfriend ends up marrying the heiress. Oh, so, we just signed these, then what? I send them with you both to the Hokage and she fills out a marriage license for you both. However, you both have an option due to your unique case, Naruto. What's that? Naruto asked, curious. You can start up your clan here, in the Leaf Village. I believe you are the last of the Uzumakis, correct? As far as I know, yes. Naruto said, looking the man in the eye. Well, then, you have the right to start your clan here. Also, have you ever heard of polygamy? Naruto went red. Hinata looked startled. Yes. And no, I will not practice it. One woman is enough in my life. Especially one as perfect as Hinata. He got a kiss on his cheek for his answer. Hiyashi nodded, satisfied. Well, you'd better get to signing those papers. After all, tomorrow isn't guaranteed for a ninja. It has been 6 weeks since Naruto and Hinata officially became husband and wife. Naruto had even decided to start up the Uzumaki clan in the Leaf Village. And it had been a happy 6 weeks. Naruto and Hinata had moved into the abandoned Namekize compound that Naruto had gotten from his father. It was rather big, about as large as the Hyuga compound. The newlyweds didn't need that much space. They were happy just being together. Today, they were walking through the village, holding each other, in the early morning. Naruto was still upset that they had failed, again to get Sasuke after his fateful match with Itachi. Even with his knowledge, they still couldn't get past Tobi. And it irritated Naruto to no end that he had failed to get past the orange-masked man. But, he pushed those thoughts aside as Hinata came to an abrupt stop, holding a hand over her mouth. Hinaheim, you okay? You look really pale. He got his answer in the form of Hinata's oatmeal on his sandals. He looked down, slightly disgusted, but looked at her smiling. She looked ready to cry. It's okay. I was going to get new ones anyway. You feeling better? She kept her hand over her mouth as she gave him a weak smile. Hi, a little. Well, let's get you checked out. You've been pale for a few days now. Even though, you are getting better. Hinata nodded and they walked to the hospital just down the street. Naruto had removed his sandals and put them in the trash after he summoned 2 clones and had them change into a new pair. One of the clones was a little cheeky. Oh, Kami, your feet stink, his right foot said. Yeah, well just remember. They're your feet too. And I don't remember sandals being able to talk. He hissed at his foot. Whatever. Oh, look up. He foot hissed back. Naruto looked up in time to collide with the large sign outside the hospital. He stumbled back, rubbing his nose. Baka Bushin, why didn't you warn me, Teme? He hissed at his now quiet foot. He shook his head and walked with a giggling Hinata into the hospital and walked to the receptionist. The young woman looked up and Naruto saw her smile falter once she spotted him. May I help you? She asked coolly. He sighed. He still was hated around the village. Yes, I need to have my wife examined to see if she has a virus or anything like that. Wife? The receptionist looked over to Hinata. She recognized Hinata as the Hyuga heiress, well former heiress, and just shook her head. What was Hiyashi thinking? Letting his daughter marry that Bakemono. The Oni must have used some kind of magic on them. She said under her breath. It would have worked if both of them were still human. But since they had kitsune features, they heard it clear as day. The receptionist suddenly looked up as she felt the tremendous killing intent that was directed at her. Looking around, she saw an enraged Hinata being held back by Naruto. Say something like that again, and I'll make sure you never walk again. I married Naruto of my own free will. The receptionist gulped and sent them to room 105. Naruto thanked her and walked with Hinata to the room. It only took a wait of 10 minutes before Sakura and Shizune entered the room, smiling. Well, hello Mrs. Uzumaki. How are you today? Shizune asked her, walking over. Better. I have been feeling ill in the mornings and for a good portion of the day. This morning is the first time I vomited at all. There are 3 possibilities. But, I'll just check you over to find out what it is instead of guessing. Shizune walked over and performed a standard medical diagnostic on Hinata. About a minute in, Shizune's eyes went wide as she looked over to Sakura. Sakura, come over here and double check something for me. Sakura walked over, confused. What am I looking for? She asked, begging her scan. You'll know what I'm talking about when you find it. Shizune told her with a smile. Sakura performed the diagnostic, and about a minute in, she began smiling. She opened her eyes and turned to Shizune. Yeah, I second your diagnosis. Will someone tell us what's going on? Naruto said, irritated. Shizune turned to them. Congratulations. You're going to be parents. Naruto was sitting in pure shock. He, Naruto Uzumaki, was going to be a father. Slowly, his brain began to unfog and work. His grin slowly spread across his face as he looked to Hinata. She was smiling brilliantly at him. Next thing anyone knew, Naruto was jumping up and down, punching the air in joy. Yes, I'm gonna be a father. Naruto leaned over and kissed Hinata passionately. He held the kiss for several seconds before he embraced her. Shizune and Sakura simply smiled at the two, both happy for them. Naruto, are you sure that you, of all people, can care for another human life? Sakura teased. Hey, I've changed in the last 7 years. I'm not as immature as I was when I was 15. You were 15, Baka. Sakura told him. No, wait, yeah. Yeah, I meant to say I'm not as immature as I was 2 years ago. Sakura looked at him puzzled but dismissed it as random Naruto-ness. Both doctors left the room, both smiling. The whole village was abuzz with the news that Naruto Uzumaki and Hinata Uzumaki were expecting a baby. Several villagers had taken up arms against this, demanding that the unborn child be aborted. They said that they didn't need another monster in the village. The Hokage had to set up defensive fields and other protective items up to keep out both ninja and villagers alike. She even had an Anbu squad guarding the perimeter at all times. She knew that they could be trusted because they all liked Naruto. The boy had befriended every Anbu in the village, some retired by now, others still active. And even the ones coming in seemed to have befriended the boy. When the Anbu had heard the great news, they got together and made a small kitsune Anbu mask for the infant. Naruto had thanked them. He himself had already shown them all his mask, at which they agreed it fit him well. Tsunade had insisted that Naruto take up the position he had earned regardless of the time period. So, he would occasionally patrol his own home wearing his kitsune mask. The villagers didn't know it was him since he went with the cloak over him, covering his hair. It was 4 months after their happy news when disaster struck. Naruto and Hinata woke up to the sound of a loud explosion followed by the emergency sirens. Naruto leapt out of bed and dressed into his Anbu armor, complete with mask. He picked Hinata up and jumped out the window for the Hyuga compound. He made it 6 blocks before several things stopped him. One was a giant black snake by the south gate with Hubby on its head. Second was 5 squads of sound Jonin headed down the street towards him. And third was the fact that Sasuke was leading their charge. Thankfully, they hadn't seen him yet. So he created a bush and told it to get her to safety. He then leapt out from his cover in front of the sound forces, changing into his Hanyu form. The sound squads stopped and stared at the 9-tailed Anbu kitsune. What brings you assholes to our little village? He said casually, leaning against a light post. The death of 2 of your own. And if we can wing it, your whole village. One of the sound Jonin said. Oh, and who are these 2 lucky people you're after? You, Baka, and your wife who is with child. Sasuke said, smirking at him. Teme, why do you want her? Because your child will have the power of Kyuubi and the Buakugan, Orochimaru wants it. The perfect prize. Naruto summoned his blade and dropped into a Kobat stance when he noticed something. Oh no, you're Bushins. And Hubby, no. He roared as his mind suddenly felt like a bucket of ice water was dumped on him. He sprinted past them to the Hyuga compound, running right through the Sasuke Bushin. He arrived in time to see Hubby, holding Hinata in the air by her throat, shove his fist through her stomach. He felt his world shatter as he watched the hand exit out her back. Hubby smiled at her as she coughed up blood. If I cannot have the child, I'll make sure no one else can. Coo. He yanked his arm back and tossed Hinata off to the side. He heard a sickening crunch as her neck collided with a wall. Orochimaru turned to see Naruto standing there, shaking with anger, pain, grief, and rage. Hot tears splashed down Naruto's face as he looked around. Hubby had asphalted the Hyuga compound first, killing everyone. He saw Neji and Tenten laying side by side, hand in hand as if they had crawled to each other in their last moments. Naruto pulled his mask off and threw it against the wall, shattering it. He drew his blade and settled into an offensive stance. Ah, Naruto-kun. A pleasure. Naruto didn't answer. He only glared, tears running down his face. Hubby had just taken his family from him. He would die. Naruto leapt, screaming with all the pain, hate, rage, grief, sorrow and anguish he felt. But he was stopped in midair by some barrier of some sort. He couldn't move. He watched a sneering Orochimaru fly through hand signs. I wish I could play with you, leave you to feel the pain of knowing you sent your wife and unborn child to their deaths, but if I do, you will only hunt me until you are dead or I am. So I think I'll nip this in the bud. Temporal release. Dawn's Gate. He shouted, shoving his palms forward. Naruto felt the air around him ripple. He felt his body pulled apart piece by piece. He snarled in rage as he vanished into a multicolored vortex. He saw a bright green flash of light and saw no more. Naruto opened his eyes and came face to face with the death god. The entity looked at him sadly. I am sorry I could not prevent this. Someone in the mortal world meddled with the strings of life, exchanging yours for Orochimaru, along with your wife and unborn child. Who? Naruto asked, still in pain. Even I do not know this. However, I will send you back again. This time, I'll leave Kyuubi alone. He will be himself again, but you can still draw on all 9 of his tails without shortening your lifespan. Please, forgive me for not preventing this. It's not your fault. Just do me one thing. Yes? Can I see my child as it would look on the day it would have been born? Along with Hinata? The death god nodded, face sad as he snapped his fingers. In front of Naruto appeared a confused Hinata holding a newborn infant. Naruto felt tears splash down his face as he walked over to them. Naruto-kun? What happened? She then looked down and saw the infant. Smiling, she lightly caressed the baby's face. Naruto walked over and hugged them both, crying. I failed, Hinaheim. You both died. But, I'm going back to prevent it. I will avenge this. Hinata looked at him, smiling, but with sadness in her eyes. She placed a hand on his cheek. I know. What will happen to us? When I reset the timeline, things will be undone. In effect, you as you are now, will not exist. You will have your memory reset and will never know this happened. The death god told her. Hinata nodded. She looked back at the infant. The baby girl yawned and snuggled closer to Hinata's chest. My beautiful little girl, I am sorry I could not prevent this. You never got a chance to experience life, she said, holding the baby closer. Naruto walked over and used his finger to feel the infant's soft, smooth cheek, tears in his eyes. I will make sure you both live, even if it costs me my life. He turned to the death god, but before he walked up to him, he looked back at Hinata. I love you, Haim. I always will. I know. And I love you too, Naruto Uzumaki. I always have. He looked back to the death god. I'm ready. The entity snapped his fingers, sending Naruto back to the world of living for the second time. Naruto's eyes shot open in pain as he sat up. He held his side, looking around. He was in the woods a day away from the village. He looked around and saw a tent. He got up and started forward when a thought hit him. What if it was a dream? He decided to check. He flew through hand signs and slammed them on his side, summoning his katana. He nodded, satisfied. His next step was to check and see if Kyuubi was present, so he entered his mindscape. He looked around and saw the gates were firmly closed and a slumbering fox was shut behind them. He returned to the present and silently thanked Kami that he could try again. He walked over to the tent and lifted the flap. He saw Jiraiya sleeping peacefully and decided to let him wake up on his own. He had a lot to think about. Naruto and Jiraiya walked in silence all the way back to the village. Jiraiya was worried about the kid. He only said a handful of words the whole way back. Maybe he was just not feeling so chatty. What Jiraiya didn't know was that Naruto was trying to decide how best to go through this again. He wasn't going to give up loving Hinata. Not now. He was going to let everything else play out normally, except with Hinata. He wouldn't give anyone too much information and he wouldn't let anything slip. He was going to play it safe. So, he walked quietly and only shook or nodded his head to the questions Jiraiya would ask. It was when they were 5 minutes out when Jiraiya confronted him about it. Hey, kid, what's wrong? You've been really quiet. Yeah, I know. I've just been thinking a lot. You're worried how your friends will react to you now that you're coming back after these past 2 years. Naruto nodded. Sure, it wasn't the truth, but he didn't want to do anything suspicious. He had blown his cover early on last time, and he wouldn't do that this time. Hey, Ero Sennin? A vein visibly bulged as he shot Naruto a quick glare. Yeah, Gaki? What do you think of Sakura? That pink-haired girl you're fawning over? Naruto nodded his head, smiling a little. Well, she does have a nice face. But her attitude, personality, and body need some work. What about Hinata? Naruto glanced at him. Jiraiya strained his memory, trying to remember anything about the girl. She's that raven-haired girl, right? Naruto nodded. Well, that one is perfect for you. She cares about you. She's got a great personality. Her attitude is perfect. Hell kid, you couldn't do any better. She's probably a real knockout by now. He gave Naruto a licorous grin. Yeah, I bet she is. Naruto said, grinning. Their conversation was ended as they entered the village. Jiraiya was really worried about the boy. They walked right past Sakura, only giving a polite hello before Naruto continued forward. Jiraiya glanced back at a confused Sakura and guessed that Naruto just wanted to get the meeting over with as quickly as possible. Yeah, that was probably it, but Jiraiya still decided to confront him about it when they got done, whether in front of Tsunade or not. Hopefully, the kid would bounce back from whatever was making him feel down. Naruto stood next to Jiraiya, silent as he listened to the 5th Hokage bring him up to date on everything that has happened since he left. He let out a sigh as she started to tell him about a test she was going to give him. She paused and gave him a stern look. Am I boring you, Gaki? She asked, irritated. He shook his head. No, Oba-chan, I just don't want to be tested the day after I got back. Though he may be a pervert, Eros Sennin gave me very little time to rest. Tsunade sent Jiraiya a quick glare before looking back at Naruto. Very well, Oba-chan, I have a request. Very well. What is it? She asked, leaning back on her chair. Naruto heard the creak as the chair leaned back with the Hokage. She looked at him with her brown eyes over folded hands. I want a year off. What? She shouted, standing up. I need that time to train and I have someone I want to train with. You just got back from 2.5 years of training. And who are you wanting to take with you? Someone very precious to me. Who? Sakura? Because if it is, I won't allow it. I need her. Naruto held up a hand, stopping her mid-rant. No, it's not her. It's Hinata. I need to train her, otherwise, I'll lose her. Tsunade sent a questioning look to Jiraiya. The man simply shrugged, indicating he had no idea what he was talking about. She looked back to the blonde. What do you mean? Naruto took a deep breath. This would be the ultimate fib he has ever told. Kyuubi no Kitsune showed me a vision of the future. The vision showed Hinata's death, here in the village. He told me it would be sometime in the next year. So let me get this straight. You want to take Hinata off by yourself for a year to train her because you saw her death? Alright, let's just say I'm considering this. I want to know what makes her so different that you're willing to put your ninja career on hold. You wouldn't do this if she was just a friend. Naruto nodded his head. Yes, you're right. If I only cared for her as a friend, I would train her here in the village. But, I've realized over the years, that I truly love her. That is why I am doing this. You love her? Why now? Because when I was thinking about Sakura over my training, I realized I didn't truly love her at all. I only liked her that way because it was safe. Safe? I saw how the village treated me or anyone who was nice to me. So, I unconsciously kept myself from caring deeply about someone who was kind to me, so that they wouldn't be hated by the village. And I chose someone who would never return my feelings. Safe for everyone. Tsunade nodded her head, sad that this boy would be hated even more for truly caring for someone. Alright, I'll agree to it. You have to convince Hiyashi and Hinata though. I already know that. Good. I'll summon you when Hinata returns. Where is she? She's not here? He asked, knowing full well she was on mission. No, she and Team 8 are on mission in Wave. They should be back in a week. Naruto nodded and left the office, heading for the same spot that he had run into Hiyashi last time. Naruto hurried down the street, to the exact spot where he knew Hiyashi would be. Sure enough, he came across the man as he made his way down the street, carrying 2 large bags of groceries. Naruto stopped in front of him and bowed. Lord Hyuga, allow me to help. I was on my way to speak with you anyway. Hiyashi looked at him thoughtfully before he nodded. Very well, you'll carry my bags. Naruto walked over and took both bags, holding them securely as he followed the Hyuga leader down the street. Naruto glanced at the man. Lord Hyuga? Why do you buy groceries when you can have someone from your clan to do it? Hiashi gave him a small smile. Because I feel the need to do my part to help keep the clan well. That includes the occasional trip to the market. Naruto nodded his head. Very well reasoned. I wish everyone in the village thought as you do. Life around here would be so much better. Hiashi nodded his head in understanding. They walked the rest of the way to the Hyuga compound in relative silence. Naruto followed Hiashi to the kitchen where they proceeded to put all the items away. After 10 minutes, they finished and Hiashi turned to Naruto. Thank you for your help. Now, if you'll follow me, we can discuss what you have to say. Naruto followed the older man back out the kitchen and into his private study where Hiashi sat down behind the desk. Naruto sat in front of the table at the proffered chair as Hiashi looked at him thoughtfully. Now, what did you need to tell me? Sir, I request permission to take Hinata and train her myself for a year. Hiashi raised an eyebrow. And why should I do this? Naruto sighed. Sir, I have seen her death. Kyuubi showed me an image of the future, and it showed her dead. Here, in the village in roughly a year. Hiashi looked at him gravely. Are you sure? Yes. He answered without hesitation. Very well. I will allow it. I am trusting you to keep her safe, Uzumaki-san. Naruto stood up and bowed. I promise to keep her safe, Lord Hyuga. After all, I can't have the woman I love get hurt when I'm around. Hiashi smiled as he heard this. He watched as Naruto turned to leave when Hiashi stopped him. Uzumaki-san, do you know about your parents? Naruto looked over his shoulder, confused. Hi, Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. Hiashi nodded. Then the agreement will be honored. Naruto Uzumaki, you and my daughter have been betrothed since birth. It was an arrangement between my clan and your father, who was a very good friend of mine. Naruto smiled at him. That is good to know that we were destined for each other. Does she know? No. You can tell her if you want. And, you can have the ceremony whenever you two feel it's appropriate. Hi, wait, where will you be? Hiashi asked, standing up. The Uzumaki safe house. Very well. You can go. Okay. Oh, I'm going to pick Hinata up at Wave and head to the safe house immediately. Good day, Lord Hyuga. Naruto left the room, leaving a smiling Hiashi. Hinata was sitting comfortably in the house of Tazuna, the man that Naruto's team had protected from Zabuza 2 years ago. She watched the fire crackle warmly as she listened to the sounds around her. It was late when they had finished their mission. It had been a long one. They had to hunt down several missing nin who had attempted to take over after they heard of the power vacuum left by the death of Gato. They had all gotten away with minor injuries, the worst being her ankle that she had sprained in the final battle. She sighed. She was a Chunin and had almost been killed by not watching where she was running. She shook her head and closed her eyes, nodding off into sleep. Hinata was standing at the front gates of the Leaf Village, waiting for the return of the one boy she loved with every fiber of her being. She had been standing there for only 15 minutes when she saw an orange-clad blonde walking up to the gate. Naruto grinned at her, hands behind his back as his sensei for the last 2 years walked beside him, smiling as he looked up to the Hokage monument. They appeared to be in a deep discussion when Naruto saw her. His grin widened and he vanished in an orange blur. She was about to look for him when he appeared in front of her, his welcoming blue eyes piercing her own lavender eyes. She felt her face grow warm as she blushed. She looked down, away from his eyes, smiling. He used his thumb and index finger to gently lift her face to his. She saw love in his eyes and felt her own eyes water. Hey, Hina-chan, I've missed you, he said, leaning forward slowly. I've missed you too, Naruto-kun, she said, her eyes closing slowly. She felt his warm breath on her face as they moved closer, lips closing the distance. They met and in that instant, she felt warmth explode through her body as she wrapped her arms around him. She pulled him to her, forcing her tongue into his mouth and began exploring his mouth. She felt him become momentarily shocked before he returned the favor. After a few minutes of this, she found herself on her back in his bedroom, looking up at him. He smiled down at her as he leaned down next to her ear. I love you, Hinata Hyuga. I always have, he whispered into her ear. Take me, make me yours, she whispered as he reached for her jacket zipper. She watched as he slowly unzipped her jacket and Hinata was roused from her sleep by someone shaking her awake gently. She sighed as she opened her eyes, slowly. She was having such a good dream too. Her vision sharpened enough for her to see Inari, Tezuna's grandson, grinning at her. Hinata-chan, there's someone from your village here to see you. Who? She asked, getting up out of the chair, making sure she didn't put too much weight on her healed ankle. I promised I wouldn't tell. Just come on. Okay, she said softly, following Inari outside. She covered her eyes as the sunlight blazed brightly in the sky. She allowed her eyes to ache just as the cool breeze gently ran across her cheek. She closed her eyes and smiled, enjoying the feeling. But she opened her eyes quickly when she felt someone pulling her close. She opened them in time to see Naruto pulling her into a kiss. Her face went bright red and she couldn't even move. It was too she could faint. She felt his lips connect with his in a short kiss. She melted against his chest after he broke the kiss. She simply placed her hands on his chest, eyes closed, and rested her head on his chest, feeling the rise and fall as he breathed the sweet air in. He wrapped his arms around her, resting his chin on top of her head. He breathed in the scent of her hair and her being, and smiled. I can't believe I've been missing out on this for years, he said lightly. Hinata just stayed where she was. If this is a dream, I don't want it to end, she said softly. She felt his hand rest on her cheek, gently raising her face to his. He pressed his lips against hers again, though, holding it for longer. He broke away and smiled at her as she opened her eyes. It's not a dream, my Hinaheim. This is real. And long overdue. She smiled at him. Well, sometimes the best things take time. He grinned at her and was about to kiss her again when he heard several people appear behind him. He saw Hinata's eyes go wide. That was all he needed to take it as danger. Spinning around, he saw 3 large men spurting at him. He flashed through Hansigsen and shoved them forward. Fire style. Firewall prison. He shouted, shoving his hands forward. Instantly, a lagra box of fire surrounded the men. Hinata could hear screams of rage and pain as they tried to get out. She looked over and saw him flash through a dozen hand signs. Earth style. Headhunter jutsu. She heard cracks from inside the prison as Naruto shoved his hands on the ground. He released the fire and she saw the 3 men buried up to their necks in the concrete. She saw the rage on their faces as they struggled to get started to give her a smile when she spun around and threw a kunai into the trees. Hey, watch where you're throwing these things, Hinata. An angry voice shouted out. Seconds later, the rest of Team 8 exited the woods and stopped dead in their tracks. They took in not only the 3 ninja buried up to their necks in concrete, but also the fact that Naruto was here, with his arm around Hinata's waist. Hey guys, long time no see, he said brightly. Naruto, what are you doing here? Kiba asked. I don't have time to explain. I just came to get Hinata and head out for a year to train with her. That is, he said, looking at her, if she wants to. Who would be coming with us? No one. I asked the Hokage and your father to train you myself. I heard how strong you've gotten and I want to help you get even stronger. Also, I want to get to know you. He emphasized the last part of the sentence. She nodded her head, smiling. She looked to her team. By Kiba-kun, Shino-kun, Akamaru, Kurenai-sensei. I'll be back in a year. Her team said their goodbyes and the pair vanished in a bright yellow flash of light.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.